O God, may your spirit and guidance be in us as we work for the benefit of all our people, for peace and justice in our land, and for the constant recognition of the dignity and aspirations of those whom we serve. Amen.
Minister statements. Minister statements, Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, 1 year ago, I tabled the mandate of the Northwest Territories 2019 to 2023. The mandate document outlines the actions our government is taking to advance the 22 priorities established by this Legislative Assembly and includes timelines and measures for tracking our progress. The priorities reflect actions that the
COVID-19 metahutin dego shagusha dugai. Ijide holeta dina hit a program service you see metatsinia goja. Cazon down the lega laita zeke gulia gucha. The business zeke got the down the kota tati zeke the government leasing. So long the assisi meta gulia gucha la zeke. Canada ron gota ron deo. Ijide holeta the pandemic is seen. Ici na chita se oja kala me loile kala kandio de waiti dize kisia kota go zetane. Mr. Speaker, masi di report is tinsi the pandemic is in metenwa china go di kandio kala na khisi yu dai di te na ki government sia ji de ke kala ta ji kala kati di do Legislative Assembly hitli Disi meta kenain dia dutsene, hesi dinda, hesi megati, kandi dislete chini demagaganda. Do report the government see the Gigatan Dandi Egalagenda February 2020 was January 2021 was it? It's a Kiwanda. Hazon a CC the government the Kedandi in the Gaye Nigini Osidus and Megalaita. Meta report Ejeta Aron Dandi now the Dandi Galatan Tateke Aron Mesela. Da Jira, Mr. Speaker, thought easy the Mewo Metekarisi, the status report Zeke. Yundi got the government see car, not sail on the Legala to that the indigenous government go. The La Ronsi, the National Committee, Reconciliation, Indigenous Affairs Zeke Nito. With the regular members of the United Nations Declaration that the Titane Kalakara Azekea. Kozaja go on Nande Zekias the town dinas the Zege Ejetaron method down to Methodisha. Down the court is Zeke Gogalas and Tazeke with an aftercare program here. The Aron go Rathit land. Mezehone tani dedi di on da son go zain di tane dule de ge galata kwense na zetle di ajon social service ke ji kan data asita di program non-government organization heshu asita I kan dende zo sane zu asi kan di ji galata dule di zeke. Mr. Speaker, do you guys the government see kala go deep pandemic is equal to Galagandati, Konezuko and Dizeki and Hotisi. Yunda the go tiny tenezu, the guy do teni teni, the not say the Ganita. So long the Dizeki Laka, a right tiny day at so the she make a galite that the Kesamitia. Dizeki Latina has an Aboriginal right negotiation. The indigenous government quality mega policy program iti metago zata diti Kandini dezosa sine charging on the galata dute, with the northern sky de, Nizu government city, Kotsakita getting Diazon, the business kego to go sanasi mesela. Come a curicho, the Kalago Galaita, Nahoti si, members legislative assembly shoe, digital government, community government, federal territorial provincial government, the Galago Galaita, so the Danji, Lesson it out in it as a case. Kai, the Zani Italy jacket, the Ozanat Italia. Because the residents of Northwest Territory, team work with Metara down the Galaita. Lega Laita is on the Zuna go say, Sinita, the does of pandemic joint. Mr. Speaker, Hauti, the government is going to Zoo, going to Zoo the Gaudi. Cotsegala, Siga Laita, Yundago, the Legislative Assembly, Mellojo, Kamagaita. The agents of Kizzy La Kamaka, the Tiana, the Kotatake, down the pandemic that was in. Kadutan Mogo saying the Dilla, Nizua see the Ganini to go say, Edeganuni, I see you Dawa Metada and Yazitake Gatan that the 19 Legislative Assembly. Tai Ji met a report on Dane saying, Dawa. Massey, Mr. Speaker. Massey. Infrastructure.
Territories have been Dakakun Inuit, Ekayarak Kinet, Damrat, Ginaurenak, Poblaron Min, Boryarak Kating, Okakti, Una, Berayakupti, Egayu Habat, Huvam Mubut, Una, Habilek Kaklaku, Klitomun, Upkaktik. Mr. Speaker, here's what I said.
Speaker, to that indeed not a Kadusindi. Is it a Casey Gazanta? It's a Casey Latisi, Ka, seats a Casey, Mitsi Gazanta, down Dizeke, down the goods and Dizeke, is ya see metada, to take out in day, Rani day, Megazanta, down in the Zoom, the COVID-19 tonight in Dagot and I said, Mr. Speaker. This is Casey, the county and the Clicho Highway Randa. To construction, Lajon Rai Kilua, to is year 2019 to Hatamonize. To the tide, that's a gat targeted the COVID 19 to 100,000. Kakala and Dati de Gonase, that's the COVID 19 case here. The fall the Casey 2021 came Mamodat 97 kilometers to. 45 kilometers to gravel to KC, take your kind out. The Dean near our tides a Kikana Hute. This a KC around the December 15, 2020. Kalashi do to gain the Kalakagotia. Kincho highways in Mewana Hute any day, Oki lane out the Halley. The NWT highway number 3 lane. To this is the Awati Tekilunia, the project in Mejihan Dai, Azokoane Tezeke, Asigo, region G, the Kaji, the only zone, the Datagulia, what is the Kede Koni de Mejan is we see, Guanu di Leane, Kicho Highway, kilometer 97, Editia Ogotane, access road, see what he access road want here. That is the Kenezua as a go on. Tizake what T access road is in. Is you do it as in the Zoom, Magalata, the Tuzake license at Tara. Mr. Speaker, Clicho Highway in. Cause say it, the other, the down there, take a light that the community government, what T, Clicho government was a Q8 Canada, the Coal Development Corporation, federal government, GNWT. 이시 제키아 칸디 NWT 제케시 다운디 DC 칸디 디 메갈라다 리촌 하이웨이 리촌 대기 리촌 government 20% equity ownership on the North Star infrastructure 제케시 에디티아게 라 리촌 하이웨이 시라 칸네 중 메즈요데 디메츠아고 가이드니 티아디 제케시 칸디 아시가이다 나캬롱 North Star infrastructure 시카 아시 손란디 메주케세 라카디오 메테가디세 디코 타제케메자 고 아제케지게 짜타게니니 이지티 혼레다 디시 칸티 COVID-19 제케시 이전 테고가칼라 Chief Public Health Officer Order CDT 칸디 가이드라인스요 디마시 고두시네세티 네즈웨디게게 디코 디제케지 칸디고 갈라겐다 대원자의 아웃린이 제티 총코타제케 나케테시 칸티시 가잔다니 데이티 인더스트리 exploration 제케지 칸디 슈가잔다 다티제 야카라 타고티 제케지나 제카레시야 두고다 다데제니데 고제니데 예쿠 와티 제케니데 트리촌 리전 제지 와치든지 마시리티아 마시 Mr. Speaker 마시 Minister statement Mr. Speaker, ejitu kotazeki eketezita metade our government issuezeki ajizeni zete kotazeki di kandi zeki tenezi chünden nizuisi tenezi katule kandi mo kotazigo zandia tule konezuko tenzeki 2020 10 municipal elections in Latvia Tekotlin 83 candidates who again la 44 seats masi ko du CNS jamo ko ami ko agetezita ko se jami nda de zini ni la je masi ko du CNS du haye la 21 kota sa yega gele din kota krichon dege bechokon wa komati wati wakoti jajon de ke gadanda 28 position da because the June the charter sig chick the issue for good hope to 11 seats because the later October the Kenny day around the city crown town village act the KZ Sulai mayor 38 councillor town of Haverhill, town of Inuvik, town of Normanwell, town of Fort Smith and the village Fort Simpson. Notezen de December geni de 10 hamlet communities the geni de ki agete the 6 mayor 39 councillor a Clavic Enterprise, Fort Liard, Fort Providence, Fort McPherson, Fort Resolution, Politox, Habert, Toktiaktok, and Uliaktok. Mr. Speaker, the Kandi Ketezi Tametara the candidates Kezi Kotaza Kezi Kandisi Yunta de Zinigi Lete Honda de Gauganenia Genesa. Department of Municipal Community Affairs SC Kandiko Galaganda Tute Kotlin Days Association Community Government Gadates Watule Nizatele Politics Care. Azogo Zaundi Ami Yunta de Zinigile Kozami Zeki Sidu Zeki Kozeni de Ami da Kotagi de Tizia. Masia Ron Ami de Zundanila Kozesi do election of Tizzy. Kozet met the staff, some volunteers, as on must go to see the Kandi Galagant as a casing. Editi goes a honor dark on a zoom, a get his started out ready. A get his tiny day with the hawk on you good at and around DC, Yuntadizini on his own Nizeke, as you say near the Tizeke garden, coating got a rogo con, without that, like a rogo dark honey lion. Masi got a rogo out in the Yami that the Zilligini the municipal election take care. Masi, Mr. Speaker. Masi, Minister. Do member statement. Do not put. 이제 Dene Echo got the yet a lot of the medevac in the Geo Conde. The emergency medical case must go to the Candida case here. Mr. Speaker, now on down I need it. The Candida is at the corner chart is here holds the daily. Come make your joy, quidita car say go to e car go again. National come make your joy. Nijida a CC right up. Candida case go down. I think you down the go to go the card the case here. Because I just target the case you do so. Hospital in New York Yell Knife the case ETTR is yonder. Candisi go. Na on dachi Candisi Kekete go Cazon diazon. The Yell Knife go Tasi on a Kotasi Yago on. Is it a case la sanity Yago Laji? Is it an equality the case as a gonti? Emergency the Kegani de. Mr. Speaker, the case a key tauti doctor go tell the Kotago that tells the case. Got a quida Segote Leago de Girana he escort that he. A daji staff as you can't see the only good idea as a gone. Got a shitty on the good idea. The only go at the case yet can't dig in his as a go on targets a lany day. Now not any day, Health Minister died of Kennedy, Massidi. Mr. Speaker, Massidi. Hell out in the First Nations case, a sea con DC Galaganta Tufte. That, Mr. Speaker, a Galaganta the YKFN case. Candisi go membership hagit. A say Candi Kozakendi, Ajidi Zeki Wantesi. T. Lasila, Mete Kotasi Hade Kokot Yazigadi the Quake Tiatule. Is it the Honda la Himagaita, Tizekesia? Aron the minister says he can't go Tazagendi. The Gozaten Dizeke Gani de Kane Zoom Kowanuji Azago to Dagot and Asegani den. That the Asitlon Gozuke Yathalandagi. Taji the Kizigazanda. That is the Kikandizia federal government go there, go the Kias gone. Tis a contact Kota Kongani de. That is the Kizigazanda. Is the Keta Kandishu Gazanet. YKFN the KZ home Chicago Guinea. Candio did the KC la Candica Leani de Ka, Gotesi, Goteus de Azon. That's a casual in the Azon. First Nations a K, Daisy Candisi, Jizzy Gatan da Azon. McKenna do with again is a Jizzy Honda the Waketi, Quetaki, Nuki Ataki Gani Diggity. Yati Candisi and Dago and Dennis knew the down in the cause of Tazaki. Ta is it a Kesi Gatanda. Ajidi Denny that's a Kijametada. Ajidi go a new teacher metada on. Tis a Kesi 2 got a day Candisi Deke. Candisi Kenny detonation Minia. Time, Mr. Speaker. The YDKF and the city in the Galagan, the Massy good say, go 1,000D, go to 1,000D, the Massidi. Massy. That's true. Massy, Mr. Speaker. The is Sago Jaysi said the Deco, La Hoti. That says la car, come a gala down the Tizeke, go Congo there Cagoti. That is a case, Kakala Cagoti. I not that it's a color trusted in the that is the case, Gazanda. Mr. Speaker, the new Northwest Territories Housing Corporation is annual report gets New Zealand Quaco Corny Guagaki Letzekia get the Quazaki new the Azaki and the Daru Sen out the Mr. Speaker, and the WT Housing Corporation is Condisi New Guinea. Is it a case Quaco change the energy sufficiency again? Contigo is the chole. Is it a case that she takes a contigo coaga yonder? Continue with the hornet eye in the tule, with Jargon as you couldn't, that's a tete yon. Is your energy sufficiency program the yard and not the quantity on the land? The under the biomass KC energy or candidate heating gani de goodly do the gotlin there. Biomass KC la cut the classy metate causing quenution, metanush go contact KG on the gotlin there. Housing Corporation Condi and Danigino, the candidate good day tion. Cazon the biomass heating is in containing the greenhouse gas citaz the KZ the cat yati to the gotlin there. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Detroit. Member statements. Member for Heber South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, housing was identified as a priority for this government, and more importantly, it is a basic need that has a significant impact on one's quality of life.
Mr. Speaker, the government is going to quite almost good. Some of the Titana Zeke to court in the Nagatation. Tizeke Kandi Galati Tezeke Kunezugo and Tizeke Yaron Tuesday Metzete. 100 Gogan Dizeke in Dagua Kodeji. 2 Tag Handu Kalinogi, Sagotan, Kago Tihali. Now, Mr. Speaker, Nahi Tizeke Quezeke is a right tiny day. Nizumi Teazgon, Queva. I mean, public housing nugget daisy, Quaco Teller is a queer who lets a Honda County nugget 10 dagger. You do the Gotland Day public housing. Department, so you go out in the Tizeke. CC take ye now and dealer Tizeke. Sa got an light today in Nanet and a county public housing. Is it Mr. Speaker? Northwest Territories Housing Corporation is the Diago Gegon or the Diago Tazas land, the Dizeke County, Senior Azeke on Darani, Goza Midizeke Quimetelesia. Nijikamodishon, Dizeke, Dashi Honda Hunila, the WT Housing Corporation Zek. The federal government, Sombagwagi, Azekizia, Jontego Tazadola. Is it a case he can't dig out and he got on our modati, Mr. Speaker? Come aganta. Minister, I mean, Metlaza, the Housing Corporation, the case, the Endadig one die, Endadig and the Tandin is the Quentin case here. And then is Minister, Metani Lani de Candisi, the Premier Cardesia, Guliatli, this year's one, you must see.
For Heber South, member statements. Member for Thabacha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I'm going to expand on a topic that I spoke about last week in relation to the NWT Housing Corp, which is the need for a new
Is Quenta Casey got the Ozon Zoo, the Cazon, the senior housing Zakia. Indeed, Minister Cardindi. WT Housing Corporation Zakisi. Situle Mega Quincy got the public housing. Mr. Department, she can't do la. Da Hadin Dilico, Quinzakilla, out Tiketayo was a Zanaqua Yaran. Minister, see the Diakaka Leazon, metjan. The only kia go down the on that they care to take go in there. And the WT statistic they got on the 2003, 2018, 86, 60 years and older, hit the onset, yeah, 15%. As you go into go to any day on that they go in there, 2,994 under. That 15 years the case, Okiana, they watch to the Gotland. Zigainda, because at the NWT, the case, I need 5% on the team. That the Kegatan down, that the Kegani, 20% is the NWT, the population is in 2035, because that's a Kagondi. The Kegatan, the ministry, and I need the public housing the care. What any issue that I can attach or did the case here? Do Talo see the case on that county public housing in the Kenny de car Yenagini, the other done it was indeed the hard the policy common as in the other. At all the Kakondigo, Metehago de Gina and de care. Taji the Honda si go Tanate go Gaye, Tandy Nugget Day, Tandy goes and did the Kisi got on Tazon. Got a teacher Casina, Candini de Ajijan, Candisi, and the public housing got on. The only Diagodan de on Dazi is you got on Tazon, on Dadi Dia, the only go a quingo one, Dene Zhatıé the public housing. Is it a case? Menandi a ronde Casey la the Candisi the Kun says a lady day, good Saint Linus and the Juana Seta, did the Candinus or Gatan Taz ago, what I did the case. Is it charged the last go, Candi any day to the good in day, Quinco any day. Coincidence was at the last go. Candini day to know on Darcy to leave out. Not a minister that you can eat the Kiomacidi. Any of Twin Lakes. The guy, the go quite a Kyogota de Dadike, with Listake. Do quick than I get in. Mr. Speaker, the so this is the case in the guys in New housing 84 again, la 1 bedroom, 92, 3 bedroom. Candigo says you got on that, and the minister of the sea said, design 57, is he Candisi 18, 2 bedroom, got a clear. Candiagilla. The metallicity gun that on it is your machines. Cut on it in license the Giganta Gada, the program. All the Quaco joints the Gigatanda, send out at lay, Meconic Gatanda, can you call out an Atlogozi the Gadet Nagade? He is the Gigatanda zone. The Kezi Gatanda any day. Tule, Segon got at Lany dead the Ozan as well. It's a tea the Kezo at Ozan, Yagina Tanaget Degdel. Taji clears the Giganda, the whole unit the Cats at Lego, and then new unit out the Nakira down dear Nakizim Tati the Kizigatanda, Tanti Tanaganta, Nugget Dezeki. Resident la NWT housing Guinea. See minister staff Nagareto is Yuaka Kenneth and the Masi.
Member for Nuvik Twin Lakes, member statements. Member for Great Slave.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as an MLA, one of the things I've heard most from my constituents about is housing. Not only does my community border downtown Yellowknife with its growing
Jean Cotaze Kazi Kandi Quay Go, Suga Gandhi, Dute Sego, then a downdy the housing that get clients in Lenny. That a chico sign digos a downdy like a deseke Jago can Jesus Yakin Digira, the Horas Quago Gata. A stion delegi the Kia, that Tonkan, a stile. 就当然对个个在考么个真的宽在开心，个在你对个真的。但是在开中大气候在开在当地是哪个地在开？上浪地开阳地也够了，伊拉我的心，现在开在哪子来？这个那个大人在当地啊，有个真大这个我就在开，上开工地都。他拿了等那些来去讲的对我跟的，他个在古里个家里得跟你说跟你的，他这个就在开心，没个个大，的看在开心个真大呢，等大差不多个这种，而且他等我在第二在两这个，han den的早上对了个外地的，但那看的看，也跟你在开心，我有呢，开在前头的昨天个他在你在第二的。他的在开始了，现在唱的对这个定的，看在开个你的，现在在来在开学的，或者上浪的看就到不浪的有怎么就是那个，那些那这个，一直开都 temporary 烧出来的你在，都个长大一直在开始，或者你的现在在来在开中都这个定的呀，看在开没在你的，也的按照个长大。第19的Assembly个，但第这样的按照下说关系个在个这样子讲，现在给看的没钱了，其他的这个看得住，对那些家庭的现在，他等的如果跟的，可能是那个点点的住，也的按照个那住，那的这开始看的是。那还是 resident 这些的看那个点的，对了那就那个的，对了那就有的，但对上那些么个大这个的看这个还是没去 speaker， 没信的。第这个是对在 Northern Housing Problem 这个是 500,000有但那个你拉的，的看这个啊。因为这里开始后来，当地人的就在开始，有大也在看的。现在这里说，是过年上闹这下，就在给你的，可是看见的时候，的 Northern Housing Solution 在这里对了，的在给你的个关单的看的时候 ，Public Housing 在加上，么个真大对了，就说看得大些，的 government 是，一直换到。国家跟地个地开始，说是个样子，那这个难点呢，每个 foundation 你这样种，你是在换了到有了比西做考工的，当地有个你我在给假是单的那种，但那啥 government 是对了，也看个了更大，或者对个看的是要一起，这个每个在他那些或者。men da de ke zene ta ze ke di development ze ke gande ne jua ko ti ke ni ya zong di ze ke me ganda di dan di kun ze ze ke a zong ji me se la ze ke kan di ni ze ni lan de ne jua ne kan de de ji ne WT si tu le a ji ne ze ke ji en da di ga la gan da ze tu le kyu de ni si di northern business chu za ta li ti ya zong de ze ke ma ka Cazon这个他讲的没事了。October 17这个，可能看看哪里，现在那些这个1 billion people 是看过咱们的当地的看这个，都没个打仗那些都德国领地那些，这个打这个，他是看的牛你打这个你的，看的你的看过咱们是看的，看牛你打的嘞。那些19 Assembly 这个是那下面个来打仗，个在地啊种，啊种是你打的种那些 government 在地里那种，看第二个那里，马西的 ministry 是的开，看的这个是给个人的马西的选的，但对这 corporation 是对我们真的过的，的看的这个是先拿这一这个看这个看的，马西 Mr. Speaker， 马西。Yellowknife North. Nakiti Gatan Tateki, NWT housing Zeki, D9 Dzeki, home insurance. Huti go de Zeki Metzetiani de Kote Jin Dage Kandi home insurance etc. Hong Kotaka Gondi Yagola Kodeti Dzekea. Mr. Speaker, Kieteki Gaita, the Oza Nezu, the Oza Tane Goa Kwegutiani de the Oza Tiasi Cazon, Dzeke, the Tanner Zeki Gazantan, to the Gotin de Zekea. Housing Corporation Zeki Kanti Ojan, Tiasi Zeki Jane Tane do. Tagotan, de Yago de Jin Dage, Kandi Zeki Hare. Kotzen dege kandi könige çüyanirem. Nizu atıkleni de ati khara kotzen kön ageni zende a jon konsi ta title azon the free simple title seke. Jion de the foundation ade ta si kwezek. Ande atule morris kotzen nyugi a kandi özel. Jion kandi zime ta diti azon. Ha Son landi kandi go on te kotinde na ki kam kyodi chu ta ko deji de ke khar ta ke gante ta deji kan deji di free simple ke kwego gyuchi kandi azule kandi go ni seni de Northwest Town Corporation it yagin land in Israel minister da do Kennedy land ke gande masindi Masi family Masi Tutene Nahoti Tekem Menazindi Dene Schindler Eji Minnesota Gotan Kontam Gunli Is theology Teke White in it 1966 Eku Gaya di Canada Teshacha Gota the Editia de Si Kandi Si Cazon Taze Kezi Kandi Yigu on 1968. 10 Holano Wago Teji I think Cazon Tesi Gogaline Taze Ki Yande Ti Kezi Gazanda. The meta researchers Sago Tesi Se or Mataka 1989 is Alberta Teshu a Contesi. Tennessee County Chairman he left economic college. You got the Alberta specific the Casey County Gogaland at the Athabasca River. Is Northwest Territories the Casey Gogai Fort McCarty the Casey is you hate that. Do the go do the North is go Gundi can you say how you get the environment the Taji the Kazila di two the Koi di the Kazi Gose, Goita, Gotasata, that is the Kasi, Landi, the Kikandisi, or Gotavia Gundi, the industry Kandi the Keta, Kandi di two the Kazi, Goiti the Kia. 1996, SC di Canada, first diamond minus E, is you go tight. The tar sand Lacha, Jidaka, David, see, Cazon, she Wahindi, to take out in day to the daisy. 50 plus years got daisy, the zoo, on the zoo, the Garcia, no reward get you what's new. It's a Jitaka University Take Candisi Order of Canada, Shukandi Magonto. Taji the Kazi, Kandi the Kazi Gatan. Dati Zegeni de T in line de Nizu Melandia is a case in line de Nizu to is a Kiasi Kandia Ratanda. That is a case in Kandisi Ratanda. Ka, sound did I see Ka Kandisi Ratanda, ni didi Kandia Mekia Otin as a Gilamo Kosendi Masi. Tamoti Kotego Gakadi to member statement.
Answer oral questions. Recognition of visitors in the gallery, recognition of visitors in the gallery. Acknowledgements. Acknowledgements, oral questions. Member for Haverford South.
South oral question. Masi. Eji tutte tekesi gatun da di tutte gotlin de gashi ji kwenzek. Eji gatun da hende di question. Premier Tadu Kene said tutte gotlin de zeke gashi. Kandi di housing crisis zeke ganta anite situle yeke kaya tiu de situle gulia yele tutte gotlin de gayandi masi. Honorable Premier. Mr. Speaker. Son kadin di zeke, kwen zeke gashi. Aji di zeke gain da gade, tandi si demani di se zetin le, sika kainet. Di politics si, di du okshona gaya oze, kandi hita, sila di si kwen zeke si, goga na tau sene si kala kandi, di housing minister in le yun di zilati zeke si, because education chu gaita, and di go di zeke si, mudia in da chantal kamurishu. Da si di zeke si gaita, Mr. Speaker, do you see? And there's a ministry of housing, di zeke mandale, di zeke si. Ministry of Housing is the Kajigan Dugo and the Ochantile. That is in Quentic car, Migodesha. That is in Minister Hita, some more guite, Tizekizio. Quentic the policy seem Gulia to let the Kizio, Mogaditi, Moguti Kakagon there. That a sound you the Leti, Zekedi, the Sid Quentic Kakala Condiane, Kaiti. Kala di kweze ke na tao se Cazon tuede ko di assemble me anute zeni de 11 kwen kan di ni zeni la zeni de ne juane se juane ta kan di a ti magai ta tu te ko tin di si jia ka ri sene sen di masi here south Henry Twin Lake Ministry of Housing. Tanet de la di kandi esi clear guide the Quedeke 2020 2022 21-22. Mr. Speaker, isi tutte kotlin de gani de member di tanet de New Victoria isi akicho numbers etane. Kandigo Cazon the co-investment fund gaita nashir kote di satani tin lisi gatanta that the federal government got tanaide ta is the hetake di garden de ka tanet and desi te tanet e kuni di lin si gatanta tili tika utalo ze wonese di ze ke o ze ka ze tizin de masin Mr. Speaker, Minister Masi is a KC. That is the KC Kandu and the Kadindile. Minister of Housing the KC car, the Kandisia C, quite the KC Kadute, and Nivik the KC. The KC Atanet or the Jua Kadisene, Nedesian. Masi, Mr. Speaker, do you see? Housing Corporation ici a Jean Gouli a geleti the all units occasion a Jean single family dwelling units and de is to cut to Satanani to Megalaita continue de Tanet is a constitution of the Legaita. It's a song with the Honda Simon Hajigalaita the Kizika continue. Ita Kana Zekadin D. Tina hu ti ze ke si gai ta z go na he ga la gan ta ze chome number ka ole ti a ron no to che ze ke ti du ga go ga ni de no te ni de members ze ka se nen di Masini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Nuvik Twin Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've heard, the Premier, I've heard the Minister talk about,
Premier di tong, Minister di tong, di kwen ko zhonxi zekio, di constituent zekio, ki jia kagana tage tere, ji low cost housing a kagana ta. Danet e, la son le ze honeta, is huan da xin du, da kwen si zekia zhong, go se on le. Danet e la di, zekia xin, hotel de, ti tu le chen lao zhe li la, danet e a tu le ka di ka zhe lian di masin. Masin, Mr. Speaker. Ye danet e zekia xin, Kotlin de zeke region zeke Tambour se tsale da ne desi ji zeke ji kwen go zon a ji zeke ga zan da si la ji se ga suile kamuri sho a di zeke ji na ke a ji de ge kwen ya sa la zeke tu le se ze le ho se zeke ji ya ga na masi se zai ka ze di ya ka la da ze di me zene se a go tu la tu magana haji what is in the masin Mr. Speaker so dai de ke ta je se na ti tele kan di go minister la si tu le ti de 11 lis randa se ko ta ze ke sia ji ze ki se ko ta zo adesi de ona go de sile kakane te ti jigama mame meta mete atule adio te ji si o za si ma ga da de masin ka cha na ni di to te ke ni de dane te ji 100 units on the ground si da homeowner situation ko te chu leases the case members writing in the Kulia Senate. See the EGTK local region, see Kandisi, Kuli the Kiagute, Kandi Housing Corporation, Sequante, County at the lady, this is Koni the Kia, in the region, Jeta, Materai, Tani, she Magan Danet. Regarding the Catulady Emily Chukoland. Aji kwa new de da ze ke gani de andin de dandi ku te ke ji ga di de ga chen yin da tu le yin de masin
Member for Nunukput.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, I was talking about medevacs in our communities. I brought it up.
di medevac ze ke di da ze ga ta mo ka de si di da go di ze ke si di ze ke dene he ho ze de le ze ke ya ta la da ku ti ja ge li ni de ya ye go kon de du yi ka go tin le da ne te dene la enak put go ze kon ya ta la da kon he ho ze de le din di ga go ze da ne te la ti kan di si escort go ze e ku yi o mo ku ri ja ne sen de masin Masi Jita ke laki mega answers etzale. Kantigo 2020 te ke gandane board for Delta te ke ganide 305 air ambulance ta tene satati layendi. Masi minister iji ke te ke la kude tili the doctors they that the ones that get it here in Masi Mr. Speaker as you see la car unnoticed got then not any day Friday the metan mechanic metan la cortea to the Masi Techo. Mr. Speaker, the KC Ganda, the Gotland Day Housing Corporation KC, biomass energy strategy Kayule. What's any day, the Kia Yan, they are the diesel fuels. Minister, si tu le yo konde, the Housing Corporation KC, the energy plants KC. Greenhouse gas ya the legan de situ yo katian. Mr. Speaker, energy furnace is the KZ Gazon Dine de Housing Corporation Cote Giante, not the unit. Si, is in a hoot, is in what could see to take out in the Cote the greenhouse gas will outly need them. Ta na hoti u te kute, ta e taunti kwe guchi yagaita. E jite keisi, a clave ka kwe kyo ne tide. 9 plex guchi, e jitu. Hita e jite keisi, e taunti a sio te siti fuel kanita. Ta jite keisi, Kandia Jota Keji Kantizi Gaitali. Tanti Nizu iti Konesiki Tiatule Tagai Kanita. Are you members? That the energy efficiency Kegatunda met the plan. The department in Anachia, got any day, get out to Anachua de Katule members, yet that is the Kajan Mategos, the greenhouse gas Kayakti. Masindi. Masi, Mr. Speaker, Minister Masi. It's a member statement. They see the housing. Or say not to it. Let us see. Does it not return? Says you want to see. And the energy gets a diesel kegani day. Down there, the pellet boiler system is a Kyrgyzstan Datulian. The contained the fossil fuel, diesel fuel is it the guy year. Candiga Ditani de 24, 25, 29 units to the Gotin de Yasalad. Minister, in Dani Zago, the Housing Corporation Zeki, Situle Yo one day. Is it a biomass energy strategy that you lay down the end? Masi Housing Corporation la inlet the Siago la car or rogo da carni land to the Gotland days a down in the Zata Leteki as you canata, the public housing tech. A ron go to le mogotecose. Is a cannot in them members in Mohamedegusene, tis a case you. That is Joseph, such a information Joseph only, Joseph the 10 digits at last Sunday. Can't you remember see, Catisi more good day, da car, says it more good day. Not any day members take it on a good age, it's a case of Kaya teaching and the machine. Machine Minister. Electricity, it connect diaja, heating fuel to diaja, dizeke. With a Honda Hutli Kodijagodan. Minister Department Zeke, Asia down the Segele, Ajiteke, Machine. Mr. Speaker, Northland Utilities, Kogalaita, Public Housing Unit, Kogalaita, Kote Chu, Oil Gas, Electricity, Kegaita, Kala, Jikandisi. See, got on tiny day, Koditi, Kanduka, Mr. Strategy, Galaita, 이지 해야지 둘이 훌리아 시틀린다 다데 티제 계시오 간디고지 카 당디 거데 티제 계시나 해세요게 노테 멤버시 이제 게 가르치는데 뭐고 세안된디 마신디 마신 미니스터 CMHC la kotazi kozeke main operation maintenance 23 zeke zikati 2028 zeke ichi zeke la di biomass zeke si ze ayin la yogo inde CMHC ujoge inde ni de mecha gulli moda dia de sini masin Mr. Speaker 이제니 데 카스 제 디파트먼트 제고세 디 캐나다 고체추 이시제케 디 칸디슈 같이레 콘 고체니네추 나히주 데코틴데 칸디제케 고첸티아니데 메가이타즈고 이시제케라 디클리아데 칸디 같이 클리아니데 캐나다 제고세네 디테케 오얀데 마시 데바차 마시 Housing Ministry 이제 군 간에 타겟이 아종 디 NWT 제게 concern 제게라 C9 이제다의 현디 마시 member that's a policy is 다 굴리하고 차 이제 department 전에 다 이제면 policy 시우틀리니데 다 이제 개두 뒤다 제가 타고 가면 가이 뭐가 라이타디데 간디오 히하고디 다 이제 개인이데 member 다고 디 굴리어진 라제 개진 제 policy 가디라니데 뒤에 다고 이제 개자도 member 제게 다나고 된디 마시 Tiasitele policy gesti ti on daisi go senza dundile e sette a ron coda ti Indonesia ti bill one zeki hadisi masi Mr. Speaker ejite kesi la dis c'est a priority on ti kandisi ka le zu c'est ta zo te kosti the Housing Corporation the KG Galagan Kiad. This department in Yachu. A queenie de tulis a jogan de Kandi the KCO to the Gotlin Dezek. Ka Megaita on do the National Tanake Dezeke, Kode Tizeke, Agence department in Yanachua. In agony there. Got any day. Me wotile me kenako teyendi masi. Dice kesi la tanega gala ki tiale. Titi. Ta minister si di client senior kesi tandigo ke se dendi ke situle ona se kati kandinde Kuli niu di azeke ani de gozekade dinner nezuani. Masi, Mr. Speaker, ka estiandi. Si jiteke si katu ondago galaita. Ajondi. Na gozen dedi gozen dizeke tandi na getezeke kwezeke gande ka ozekaditi. Ta santida go galaita. The Housing Corporation zeke. As well. Mr. Speaker, Housing Corporation is your da Kualiagin the Ondago Galagan Tazekesi. Ninth, Taulion seniors complicating is the Kiran tiny day. They got in the programmer, the senior home the Kirayan. Ta kan ta de dia ko san la se housing corporation kan ta gu liao gin la ni zhuan de. Ta me te ho da the members si a zhuan si si ka je tie tu go di jia gu. Ta an di housing te ki anagi tente tu le member te kan de sin di ma sin. Eji mago ta ta di NWT housing policy si ka kon di azagon kan din de zon ko te ti a zhon ga la gi te te ke si te ke ga tan ta zon minister si na ga si me ga ti alis masi Mr. Speaker eji te ke si la ti ka se ga priority on ti mentadi quaita ko te ti si tama cha te ke housing authority ke ji gaita ta ji te ke ni de ka me ga te oni ti new ta ni te ya ko la kan ti si tu te go tin de si me o te go se ti review te ke si tle ni de kan din de so kwa san ki me ga ta tu le di masi Yellowknife North. 2014, Northwest Territories got the NWT the KZ County, a Tletseni Targin or the Desert KZ, Cleason Bago Wagner. Minister, Dan the Kitat, is yet Tanet Elise la County Agreement, Agusha Sigote, Tanet la Senitini Oyendi Masin.
Responsible for lands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 16.
Thank you.
16, yeah.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Mr. Speaker, in a 2007 business plan, the department committed to a streamlined land management system to transfer leases to fee simple title where appropriate.
Transfer leases fee simple title go take la to the municipal government. That is the kila Timoana Ute 2007. Timekure zone 16 zone, 832 zone leases on. Minister, Ajide Honda Jigo to get the Kati.
Thank you, Member for Yellowknife North. Minister responsible for lands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can't tell you about 2007. I wasn't even in politics there. I'm glad the member has been able to find those resources and that. But what
2007, Chijigo Tahtile. Ajidi take go to get only the indigenous government go take good. Edi Tia Yogerejo. Ajigo to get was in. Diti Kandiana Jayogin de Ka 697 housing units as a department see Ka. See, Tandi at the Kizi Galaganta, at 179 units to Galaganta and the machine.
Oral questions. Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I well recognize we need to consult with Indigenous governments. However, I want to note the majority of people in our public housing are Indigenous. One of the biggest problems in our territory that Indigenous people face is lack of
The indigenous government could say out in the commodation, the fee simple title is Yamogose. Minister, 2014 the case has on leases as a fee simple title that's the Adule Yen machine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish I could do it like that. We have a process.
Katlatul in the Catholic, Cardio Tigakala. Go like with the NWT Housing Corporation take easy. Now they go send it out need 179 make a galita. Got a shaka, no good thing, they come and this only, two solid show, the contact case. That is the Kirasan down. That she down in the car, one at it. I got a NWT housing unit, go gala. Ogalata go de jintag, desonte Ka de wo lia ni dio ka men an dia zong. Is it a case men an di na case the indigenous government to go to as go. E ku ji da tia si tani de ne ja. Ko zeni de ko ze gu de len de dang di sen ni ta yen di ma si.
Questions, member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My actual preference would be that we give all of our housing corp units to Indigenous governments along with the funding, but
Indigenous government got to argue that the funding treasure. Minister that the common 179 units is in housing corp needs a triagity. She had died to Agelia. She must have taken the end.
North Minister responsible for lands.
Mr. Speaker, there is a process.
Come a process there. Is the key. She had the land in Israel. That a home, the Kumiko that Joga see. The town the owner then not today. The COVID the Hona Gashu town of them. That is the Honda NWT housing co galagi the indigenous government co galag that is member card yet 2014 is a car saying that the clear some by NWT housing is it goes that has a check. Come again who take a light and Kaji and the Tekasian Indian. Must it? Cam Lake. Masi Tutsen is minister NWT Housing Corporation Tech. Down these partnership that's it yet at the building housing partnership tech is it you not at the end. Masi Mr. Speaker. It is a game modi short toilet the partnership tech is in. Candigo Ka Sonsi the indigenous group co the housing delivery tech. It is all a housing corporation is in the core investment fund co galaganda the quantity is the federal government tech goes and did the got in there. Mr. Speaker, you had the housing corporation is a car candy staff got indeed me going that case going that they say that the own 17 Kotasa me going that the 33 that case staff the case candy see the CMHC go galaganda the application the indigenous groups on the co as often as the business the tahan the Catholic candy quickly the key. Mr. Speaker, housing corporation the Kejila Ron, Quatakani show the partnership the Kegani. And the Kogalai Tani, the partnership Kogalai Tatu, indigenous the Kiagi Tedeco, Catulamo Gute and the Massin. Massi, Miss, the indigenous the Kiwakoy, the Massi. The Northwest Territories the KZ, the Laka Housing Corporation is Kandi, Kotatakin India, get Tigola, Dondi, Unguli, the way to Galagan Diane. Mr. Speaker, Housing Corporation is Ka Son Gotayagin, the units that has a shoot the Kegani de Son. Tu Kozani Shizeke Kanita, do that and a condisi, a sea that taga at the Kesi Kandishu, that was a good day as well, Quenteke Ganide, shelter Shagute, Son, as Roman Daddy quite Tajiteke, that Tandine Tule, Nizunita Candigo, the co investment fund is young. Make it easy and digital arty indigenous group here. And they are more that the two take out in there. The Goten is a public housing and you get out the Kandish Kandigaganda. Housing Corporation is your own to lay this group go Galaganda. The Tekesia, the low cost income housing Tekia and the Massin. the core investment fund can is on the partnership with the Tekotin there. Minister, see to let the stakeholders at a condisi co-send the policy foundation take garrison to Tekotin there and the must. Merci, Mr. Speaker. And that the quantity policy the case ministry is the case situé Magon Sanate Moko Siago only. The came some budget what he needed. Do Northwest Territories the case, Tia, Gozani the case, Gozata di Tiani de Ijiaita, the one member not any days the Kionetagusane, the Teke Morane the Adindian day and Tui good leader Siago only the case you want to hold others. The Catule, she knew at any between late the case, what is in the end of the case, you kayaking. The metada, the she continue, she tagotaki, could then she was a good there was a country quick who needs the case, the public housing ticket. Hazogo take out the dear contract on you or the case housing corporation has done Nigeria. Continue to down the garden and down the city. As on because the Jamaica policy good down. That to take out in the garden Cindy. The minister, Situle, Yegon Kayati, the partnership take a CY and the Massini. Massy member? Mr. Speaker Massy. Least the KC member C. Yego cutting the Masiati to come a good version. It's a question. That to take out in dates a kegani de come this is gaita to quick on the chart a KC. Can't you go any good or the KC that he go send it out the Sigut Leani de the low cost housing on the Catule Cathedral. Because it's a Catule.
Oral questions. Member for Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. It appears that the NWT Arts Council has not received the attention it deserves for the last several years. Only half the seats on the council are currently filled, with 2 having been appointed only in the last couple of weeks. The strategic plan ended in 2018.
The KC Garden Down the Ministry of Education, the Katagoti, NWT Arts Complex, because the town there theatre because the boards the tie and the machine. Merci, Mr. Speaker. Eji son Kuliagucha, the office of KC, because the Metete employee Agundi on the public service again. I see some method lion is a KC Tamokayaneti. The KC, the board members, the KC, and I get a good chucky when I go on. The members that say they can be down the Galat and that's a KC, the Kimagaki. Issue only the take member that the occasion. Cazon as a connected the numbers in his deco conjodele. A million that is the stage yata is a gatanda. Tandi chizeke, Tandi guzin daniti let the case gatanda. Taka shot a full boards and a teacher. 2 kitana or Kotaginitia 2 dana or a good charge. Websites a regarding this. Ici la tion tu le mentadi quazanda. Son lundi, tu le magatan tali zekio.
Thank you, Minister. Oral questions. Member for Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I want to thank the Minister for that, and certainly my intention is not to embarrass anybody. I just want to make sure that we get the Arts Council back on track. I think part of the problem is the lack of support from the department and the way that arts
support hullet artists, jitana tanyo te artists on the yandi. The minister do NWT take council down the zata den dili yandi masi.
Thank you, Member for Frame Lake. Minister responsible for EC&E.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we currently have staff that provide support to the Arts Council, and as I mentioned, there were some operational issues.
Arts the Arts Council
have a role in making recommendations to the minister about how to distribute.
The Arts Council ka isia kan di kun lian di song lang di kan di ala san ta tu te ze ke sia the arts funding ze isi ze hone ta di si Arts Council si minister ze ge ta minister si ko ga la gan da ge de isi ze ke ta isi chu ha de si de kon di si la kan di a de ka ku li isi di si me ga in le de si wo ze on he go de si a go on due kan di ga si a adu ga ka lan da de go ni zo ko ni ze Arts Council si ko ni min di se a ni zu ko ga la ta ni ze tu te ko tin de ze ke a zo arts ka ni de ta ho ze ke ni de Aji take go country responsibility down the whole take Yajogo Zekaditia to Zekatia to Friday again day and the machine.
Minister for that, and I think I'm interested in looking at best practices as well. And I think some of those best practices are shown in other Canadian jurisdictions, including British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Yukon, Newfoundland and Labrador. Their arts councils are equivalent.
When a good in the Arts Council is in legislative Tatsagan, National Hits Sila, 1989 go to policy now. The Arts Council, Minister, is a Casitule Magainda, was a legislation good year to the Arts Council. I didn't this on the independent party, the Venezuelan machine. Two Cardisia only. Can you come and daddy quite Diane? Machine.
Country member for Frame Lake.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I was hoping for a yes there, but a firm no is okay sometimes, but he's looking into it. That's a good start. So the strategic plan developed by
Daddy quite died Arts Council take care.
We're still in a pandemic, but I think there's tremendous potential here for a rebound in tourism. So I'd like.
Dene Zhatıé Arts Council Zekela, a town di qua get the tourism Zeki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and of course.
Haji Zeketi to the Kotlin Day Zeki Gani Day Ka Department Asa Kokeko. I do the Laka Tanity Li held the partnership Tihonatati Kagotia Wote and Setsata di Tiazon Tizeki, the art Zeki. And Dene Zhatıé Zoom Metsesi somebody the Chiatulian in Zeki. The key could lead the Kita Kandi knew the other Zeki on the land. Is it Zeki got and does go? Tule Zetzelin, Dene Zhatıé, said to the Gotin Day. How Dene Tule Metsesi, tourism Dule that Dene chose a Metzewa Tule Thon, the art Zeki, how do Hagel Tule on. Saji Kautle Nita, and there was out of As long the program the casing. do you need the indigenous Sogata Taditio del Cardio Rosi, Cosata Duty need the Tandi or Sagala Tataki. Do you see the Kazi Cosata Diti Naki government neatly the Kazi? Ijaran. Cotamandale Shukaita, Aji the Ketule says the Kazi. The Jaji said it at the Catule said it. Do they go to India Gardens in the Massin? Two written questions, Nanakput. Mr. Speaker, medical access, she did not get any data without the other medical facilities. And then that wasn't missing due to going there. So, court has a Kigani day, is a Kigani da ministry, she could send us. Done it, a man of access, making tone. Got the physical year to the buffer data. Got a done it a number of the court has a case, clear guy that the man of access, the Leaja, got a giga the reasons good. Yet allowed the dialogue. No chule, no pilot chule, as you got some method that the yet ahead, tau, the done cool the last song. I showed it, didn't account it on it as a same as a Latin. The cook had that he got that in Ola, the corn light eyes of the alternate concerning goodness. Is it a case you can't see do then do the go for Delta the case? As you let the aircraft on the down the chemicals and number that uses one is one. You must see, Mr. Speaker. Camley, Mr. Speaker, as you do the case, Mego, Kotata in the Bill 20 the case, Metata in the Taji the case, house out anything. Mustn't. As you take care of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Employment, again, Danny, issue, Taji the case, the other. Mazan Tadani is the case, the cotton date, the case without digging the emergency the case here. Canteen the tule, without tule Kozakan, the case or the emergency the care. Taji the case. Mazata doing dinner said the case, can't see Kayati, Tati, and they near the artillery ending. Bill 20 is yard. Nizu, Mizhonism make a Yatiazo, got the social development 2020. Ta Tizakesi public hearings at the Lande, Tizakesi Kantiga Latula. Ta Tizakesi at the March 2nd, 2021. Minister and the Mesh motion is Sikatu in the the Dandi Gala than Tazakani day. He mega see the Ratan Tazagon, Tizakesi or Kanti Mega Nundi. Standing committee, the Kesi Gatanda, Tizakabil 20 Kesi, Kantian, TC La Magagota, the Metada, Kanti Kesi, then First Nations, the Kantizi members, the Kantizi, the Kanti Gatanda. Committee. Must get in the must get in the Candy the case here, Candy the case here. Do NWT the case here. Committee, edition the case got that again in the deck. Appendix A the K, got any day, the NWT the case Candy, to the Northern Workers the case Candy regular. Public input is usually the case here. Mr. Speaker, do Koti, you all Setsani secret state for the Kiyatin. Masi Camley. Member Slavey. Mr. Speaker. Emergency leave committee see a kyoke or Candidate industrial nagare. She got a rainy day, Kachi unpaid leave she got at emergency. Candidate COVID-19 issue. Issue method laws on this calendar. Employees see the continue emergency leave see government case continue. I see method laws on emergency got. Is a KA got any day public health emergency is a case issue. Got the C the case direction got the order the public health officer. The got the cut the as or chief public health officer or deputy chief officer did you can't get a health act emergency the case emergencies act the Canada the case. She built 20 the KC Department of Education, Culture and Employment the KC. And these have gotten the regulation. Because any day, because the lazy mellow, they got the county say, go to easy the KC got and does go with the county. He can't any day, go to easy continue day, Magatan does all the day to down the town, goes out and detail. Then as he can't do the any day. Kai Agan does go moody, see the case, or doesn't the as go yandy. Got the seizure, the county doesn't any day, the court is a canny day, Yami Galan does the case in the Josat Laralan does go. The county is a case cut any day, ya Tira was a cut at the Azon. Department is in. County the cake county the only day. Is in Magatan does or the Kitata at the case, got the cut at the Azgo. As you, the medical investigations the treatment, got a self-isolated the quarantine the KG got a shooty and a galant that the KG galant dollar the meta employer see the KG. You got me a galant that the KG got the galant that the disease meta got a shoot to shoot go to see the K. Hot and that's a KG the KG. In rainy day, the travel restriction down that is a case emergency. Emergency leave is la tika kimagala dead the chemist long the dollar siziki. She can't do the Kenya and the any day car employees can't do a galandal any day tita to have contagion and what is you can't do it. Mr. Speaker, too. Emily take a gauch in the machine. Great slave, machine. Techo. As she take a two, Megatan the Women Council, UNW TKC, Kaketi, take a down the Kojan delay the emergency leave take a see or cokenda. Asa the Tatakedendi, the government KC resort. It's a KC emergency leave it will go down diggity. That is a woman getting. It's a KC can't emergency leave the Kojan any day without a Handinas or Zatule. That's a good easy cake in the end. Handit a canny day to the sick leave again. Saturday is on any day. It's a K more easy the K on tenny. Hamidi Henan did the K, the Candis a Casey Candis for Matani Litani, the Candis Tila Candiana, LGBTQ workers, the K got workers immediately. Candid the Galata, the Casey Candina, Natal Tata Galata, the Candi Gatan Tazo, and the Amatsan Diaz go to on any. UN United Nations workers the KC gotten COVID-19 the KC Kagati. The county la say and the go workers the county go la Tayagun the Galagan Dal the emergency the Hora Jesse Galazan Dazon salvation quarantine the K. Is it the KC county Galagan Dal and the Tizeke South in the county gotten Dazon. The UNW the DRU or Condisi Kotaka than the the employees see cutile the federal benefits tago zauti the zekia. Cazon tu mega kandi said last September 2021 the kimikyu the article. Is the Gakaka the UNW the Department of Public Consultation with a hagulate the kandi zeki emergency. The standards regulations zeki. Metara the public with the tiki stakeholders as he can dizzy Konigut azo di zeki go get the azago. Talosi agon di getieni de di zeki sia. Yeah, emergency under section 30.3 on it. Emergency leave is in to COVID-19 zekia. Di zeki gane martial law balance their solicitor command. Kage the emergency leave criteria says the bill 20 the oza go to kidneys usual teledi kandi the COVID-19 gani dedi ko te kage the department si the tanami galanta ko galanta the kezi the kandi ganta to the emergency leave the gani dedi. Mr. Speaker too ko te and any between lake yet take out the any masi. Mr. Speaker, Committee recommendations are taken to the stakeholders the case. The policy program is Yelotanyagi do Kandi unpaid leave the Kegasio, the Kandi the Kirago the Anide. Committee, the tissue kaketi, the Kandi public issue was a Cazon there, at the emergency leave the case with the regulation. Standing committee see the Kandi Gondigeti. That is the Kani the education, culture, employment, the KC, the public consultation agelia. This is the Kandine, Zonsatile, Kakoto Agita, or the KC, the method was already Bill 20. Recommendation 2 is go get on the Atron, the Kodijita KC, Kandi the Kani, the KC at the Department Controls Committee, Standing Committee to Department Education, Culture, Employment, the KC, the Kandi, Cazon Banigi, the Wazataka in the Azo, the Kandi, the KC, the Kandi, emergency leave again, the Zeke. Committee should cut the Masigin is a so I see the employers as he Kandi, Konate, as you got out of Tizeke. Committee should cut wrong Yagan that the Kandi the case gonna theatre la the case, or you walk a telegi on a last sound. Taji that the amigo Aralagan Daji Kandiziga Maraco Tazon. Committee members say, Kauti or Laganize, Tizeke Kandisi Ranite, Tio Oza Hutigo Keseo. That Tizeke Mogos and Teanite committee see the motion getting. Taji the Kani damage and Hago out the Zeki Atulani, Kandi the Kesi Kagon the Gani Dendi. Taji the Kesi the Billy Kandi say Milka the tea Gazago on the Zeki, Tantico on the Zeki. Motion is see. Kati Kandini de 8 years ago on the Zeki. The Gitalo Siziki Wagalan Tazeki, the trade unions at Tani de Kakandi members in Yatule. Motion gets that Metegule Sago Ale, she got to live with any day honor with the copies you go was it Liadule. The Mets employee got the honor, the honor post notice as it has a letter. Do Emily here is South Altendi. Must see here is South. Do Magatanta Bill 20 is Yati Clasante, the Tandi Eku, to what indeed the case, the Kandi, the employers, the case, you take out the Azon Yedi Shazon, is Jiteke. Do Jiteke and 40 16 weeks got that tule, as your numbers, he employs the case, he down the Yigidi Tizeke Gazon, is your Tekatu Moniguta. Kandi the Kegatan Tani de Hon Messinia Tita Rani de Bill 20 is Yazot the Kezi the employers the Kezi Kandian di tanda khandi si gala gan ta che ke gani de di khandi si se la ya di khandi ya di ga zan da tu ma ga zan da di khandi shi tu le ze lia li yan yi ze ke si tu me the circumstances si ka me ze ka ze dia zo go is employers ze ke si da di e da di ze ke ko ze ni de ne di学校的 exercise 啊dia zo go当地的me ta ku li a gun de ze ke ja ko ze当地的我真的这我的里头的的yi ze ke me ke ze jo zo go yin di ze ke be le si ka ka la me ze ni ze zo di ze ke si kan di di我这等在头里的，一直给他提起来，一直红烧这的拉这个烂大子，红到等的，一直给他去看的这个地个量，一直他的看的看过店里的的 employer 这些的，还没过个了跟大家开始看对的看的是，我就是给起的，还没过个烂大子这，你们在爱讲嘞，还是的这种，都在给看的是个真大的标20在开始，他就在开始了。이제 다게 디세 에티고 제국인데 디제케시 하면서 클래스 UNWD 제케 이디티아세 예가간 다다 디시아지 제케고 제 needs and rights 시켜 디안의 디 employer 제케시야 이제 제 혼에다시 카 디제케니 데세 에티고 제카게 디디칸디 이주 카젤데 아니 데카시 티아젤데아서 어디에 치하고 저리 시자가 저디 UNWD 디아게디 두 카칸디 제케주티 고아니라 예가 좀 고아 슈리디 칸디 제케 가고 지니 데가를 지데 제케 간데 이지디 칸디다시 예교데 좋아서 온연디 디지 제케 아오저데 루시 제케 이디 employees di jo ze ka de UNWG di jo yoga gan da zo dane de dan de se la ze ke ji go ze yao jin de ko ze kan di si ma ga zan da ji ze ke mi zu de se wo ji ze ke ji ze ke da di mu li di ni de ya lo si ze ke ji ga me si ka ti le ye ga ga na ta ti le o ne ni ke chu an de ji ze ke ka mi di di ya ge di ji ze ke je me da da an di bil 20 de o ze zo le 별 20 제 계지 간디니 대슈 뒤에고 저 라이트한데 committee di TG di 이제 별 20 단위 조주 motion C appendix C 제게 Mr. Speaker do MLA 감릭 제게 전혀 없지 마신 do 노때자 이 메타 클래스 제가 전다 메타 motion C 별 20 제게 단위 제 주인데 이제니데 아정시 메셀라정 디타네 칸디 제케가 라이테 제케지 에쿠 호수와 사제 디와인 디타 데 라갈란달네디 디제케아 디잔 캠금이 디지별 20시 모라디엔 다 디제케지 honorable member the bachelor case 제케탄 committee social development 제케는 별 20시 단위 조주의 제케시가 디 셈블 전요추 커미디에서 호제 케시가 들리는데 마시니 마시 아로에 나세 아미레니데 카 모션 다데도 마시 Minister of Finance. The supplementary estimate infrastructure is a in that 2021 supplementary estimate operation expenditure 2020-2021. Mr. Speaker, Premier. Mr. Speaker, the table new is the 2019-2023 mandate of the Government of North Territories Annual Status Report. Masini. Mr. Speaker, is the table of the document Wage Reduction Recovery Program 2019-2020 Annual Report. Masi. Framelake. Mr. President, TZK Intaniochu, Husky Energy Exploration License ER2494 Zeki Intaniochu, the Masin. Masi. Azeruji.
Welcome back.
Masi. Welcome back. Notice of motion. Motion. Mr. Speaker, AG 2000 NWT 47, there's those territories, I see. That one housing problem, increase of 10% since 2000. Dajidati has a car mega problem kagi. Is it the honor that allow seats a kiko tazi to the got in days? The regional center says the young life to hay. Administrating housing is the Kandisi Kotazaki Gazon. The Northwestern George Housing Corporation mission statement is the Kandisi. You will continue with the Kagetialis social program. Take care. 이제 와노 때 public housing 이제 그 같은 데에 이제 와나 코이지 제게 니 되면서 로로데 당디면서 이제 제게지 막고 따지고 디당디 되네지야겠나 이제 혼다 CEO honorable member New Victorian Lake is the town in India Legislative Assembly 시아로 government North Territories 이거 제하게 디야 로 수이고 규다 디제게지고 전내지고 권이 쉬어질래 the mission statement is Cazon Senagutlam policy. The Northwest Territories Housing Corporation is to cut the government program to method was going. It could the Tago de Data. That is the case that the government Northwest Territories is the condition you cut the liaison the 128 days there. Man, Massy motion. Kamlik, Mr. Speaker, is the case lati Moganani said the case that the lati on social development that the indigenous people the case is it on it that the condition la come the motion the case la county the Nesi County Society the case county the liaison that the case la the county on the 2015 United Nations the case county on that the assembly should county on that the queen the case goes and the method on the wrote the assembly the 19th assembly that Mr. Speaker the county has your method loud reality yet a good year go to the 40% the case county quick as hell. The case the ones that you want the case. The see the case county was the little case town. That the case county data allocate the public service county got some time. The county gets and the and they can send out the class go all the end. That is the case, the county, the DC county, Magatan Taz go on Yandi. I wrote the case here, Yandi, Magosa Macatalian. Quite a case, I can't metago the honor. Quite is a case. I did got and does money this got. Coquino say, Jam the Honda see without our way out in the Zua good is the case county got and that. The zoo is at the land is united the John. Triana Zoo, the continues the last go. It is a case that the government city desire garden tiny then is rugged as go to Quincy. That the county make you teeny then is rugged. That she is a case cozy the canny day, Mr. Honda Naki City. Me write that is a case of the County Senior the other Kegani Dandy, Massindi. It does the Honda Sea do make a good and daily day down the Quincy case program wasn't that. Has only more going to tea. That only get a the Nesi condition with the candidate judgment that can't you get a cagoti. That fundamental relationship con county more going to the Quincy case territorial economic being the care. The country go going to racism the care go going to. That is the honor that is Mr. Reason. The Quincy case may go send it as go. Can't you nagagi alley. That sounds a night at the occasion of Cantigo guy, got a good day. Tuesday sits a lias ago. That goes to the Kiazago, down the she's a key county, says a lay. Quintic in the car. More getting the quick to legit more at it. That quick was any day yet on it. Mr. See from method down the GTK. That the mission statement, the housing Association the case continue days you can say lias ago county the Cazon Taconazugo and the Sikulio dele, Cazon left on the Tute Gotlin day, Cotamete Honeta Shutalo, Sizekezi, Kulia de Lezekiago, or Tizekezi. Mr. Speaker, Tizekezi got and that the motion Zekezi housing program, see, Nezuagule, Yizekia, the motion hold on, may I go DC, the kind of Zazaliazon, Cotamete policy ragatia, Tandi or Lezekezi got and Dazago. A Rose met at the other Tizekezi County Murati and then housing program, Nezuata Liazo partnership, stakeholders, Cotazo County, the second Diazo. Candiata Legani de Tizimetara, Tati County got a Leani de Majaco White and the town Tizekezi. Tanaki County, Tennessee County, anything as a go Tizekezi to take what in there. 2019 see NWT committee see the case county yiga kondi ke chida kandia kheda zo ko ani lage tin le da yi te ke ka ko to me se ni ati ti kandio ku lion de le khwe ze ke ji kha ne zo a zo me long de le ka ka la khwe se na ze yi ka la ka ko ti a go te ti khwe ze ke program ne tu ri khwe ni si a zo o ta la ze hi a go ne because I don't see it government Mr. Speaker. New tune Mr. Speaker. Housing rogo on Teleton. Can't you go to Quincy Nake Daisy las below standard out. Son Quincy Cedilla. Indigenous people, let's see. Hutli editia coquegon or to Quincy or Cotelianite. A down dida la di Candici Cecilia, Tizeke. Addiction, the Honeda Shabute, the Hutli, the Tech Quig on it, Tonatek. Quite tuned in a godati is a catanero, then more cotanesi or quiggles in his tajidashu a good gatunda. That is a case let us play with something that take you either. A coup na hiazina plata salati, a quita modatuni, quesa. A dinner I wrote the nation, killing like a quenish and like a day. Continue only this one is yeah, Mr. Speaker, the motion Saturday, the machine. See, clear goes out of scene that the motions again. Mr. Speaker, Premier take the Housing Ministry in the Quincy. That is the case. As all the cabinet see, Kai, you can that the government see, Kai Kyogejo did the case. That is the case. Quite a case. Tatandia that Naki comedy the case. The government is a cooking day. That is the case. That is the case. Cabinet see abstain against the motion take care. Mr. Speaker. Monsieur. Family. Mr. President, as you move in their second or see, did motion to kill Kayagit. That she said, I see housing is seen, Katoza Sega, see that town. They in the assembly, Tagus Chataki, Azomaki. In the government, you see, came a walk on this walk and daily. Hard was like he killed with housing let out the quite a kigimoku in there. Taji take case at the national housing strategy, she got on that. Timothy. You can't see the water so some about Janakina. It's a Honda kit out the sea ocean, I guess, or you don't need as a huli. Two good which are the cabin head. Taji take case in Magan. Tan sees him a gala and Taranda. That is a case, I does go on. 고제니 데 아로자겐데 고제자 고제하게 디아 둘려데 디코제 당디 제케시 간디 저전다디 디코제 계산하 기라 다디 스무븐 사기는 메자다데 디아시가 메자다데 디디시 하자고 리 마신디 튜네데 월레데 다시 주카지 이 코제 계시 가우트메 게가라다 고제 시메나이니세 Cazon de kezi kam ke gutin te yant. Taji te ke nakiti on. Dorji dorda go te yao jin de ti te kezi. So kan di si di kun te ke o ikaya get. Ta ti te kezi gatan da. Da kan di na te te ke ti liang de di kun te kezi. Kun go ja ni ge ji chu shin da de ka ge ni de. E ti on te le di. Da di kun go chen le na ne di public te ke. Kandiji me go kandiji go de ti zong yi je huan da kandi la di xin na xi xin mo go ji ka me ke ga lai da di kwe go ni de da ji je ke ji di sa ne zha ti la le ga lai da de ni zu ha de ha zong le ga lai da zong le zang ni ji ya de on zhe xin de cha de ki san ne zhe zhuo zhe di indigenous government di xin san ne zhe ge de kan jiao de le ha zong le ti di ha zong indigenous government di on ka di on ke de ke ju kan di go ga lai da zong chong zhuo gu de le yi ji huan da ne ni zhuo zhe lan de ni zhuo ne se da xu me zha de le di ma xin di and I put Mr. Speaker, moving sacred the motion to KG the consequence of the community neck put a seed the car to Tanasong. Yagini Tanasokotati, that the consequence of la lady 90 to the whole yarn. That is the Ramasi, the country legal government legal tiny Denezua. Taji the Honda. Na hizi kandi gai ta zong ji te ke xin na na shu ka go de ti da ru kwen na ge de kwen ya gun li le yi ze ke kandi da ti sa ko la ta thina zhe la ke ga dan de ne zha ti kwen ze ke da ti bo for delta kandi ga ti ta ni de ne zwa di Mr. Speaker. Every sound. Mr. Speaker, the housing education method the to take out in data now. Method a medical quick telegia, wasn't a good hit as go. Method could say agility take that Gundiana hits a kage argy take you could hit one. None at 10 frames at the one because in Yagiti. He can't go this hit as go. 이제 그 시시가 가게네 다카르고 제리아시 이시간데 쿠시가 전다데 뉴베고 슈칸디 고고 자이티아스고 디 코에제 계지 가자네 주고고 다나 시아지데 그 디카브면 시나리티 따서 송 디마간다 디카브면 시 마간다 송 아시시 모구테 Kandiyogi government CDT zogi tili ona ho tishagiti government agite the kokende. Now the new tageni. The consequences legiti. Kandiyo no dejeni dega so units in the Atantia each atente. Here was the high rise at the this. Is Yagon Exxon Nagatia Tulio de Zeki Kandiyo. Federal government the KZ. Naze Kunigi Lagi Kakagendele. Mijiraris. Tenegoni guna, Chutag ni shigoni guna, Nakia na ke go on. Taji the Keta Quadi Chow any day, Mozambique out the continent Taconita Tule. I see it long, Medadi gets an attack and dominating the 2016 is the County Kagot. Taji the Kiki Kagoti on the Kaiji, the Kaya Gedit. Da ti te ke motion is with Tata India. Ta si masi 이지 cabinet members 시 제게도 되지 가면 교리죠. 디 housing 시 가다 티아래. 히림에 가시 단이데 메제 혼다시 아조시도 되고 린데 되네시. 그게 고디 디하고 니가 다 이자리 신지 마시 아종 캐나다 자고 때티 콘세케 이제 때케지가 한다티 때 메고와서 되네 때케 이야시티 디체케시 캐나다 디티아케티 나히라나가 때케 이 다시카 메짜다 된디야 마시 아게디 다지 때케시 이거 전부리 쇼놓고 카메 짜다 된디야 저기 하르세 콘을 가디가 한다 다시 때케야 오치 다시 때 혼에 다시 간디오네 아시 때케니 데 콘고 짜다 된디야 디 하우징 때케시오 짜다 된디야 다 디제케니 데 소디시 고나세야디 마시 Yellowknife North the motion is tekeshi housing corporation tekeshi kulia bucha na hiashi song kulia hitlashi tekeo start tekeshi kadeshi corp kuntiodel 고가된들 이선 바지고 가지 아저께 이온 나 해좀 먹어준다 디선 바저께 고제니 대son 크게 니즈네 간디안으죠 다디 홀 소셜 서비스 budget 596 million 고제 하우징 코퍼레이션 한 118 million 사운드다 카스 제리아고 다디 제 계시 론 디파트먼트 고하고 아시지데 온제 디아티고 budget Cazon corp la dandio de tauti metse baji diandele hikala ji go to kaji ekyogene ta zo karisi kweze kesia the onze dia john kwena indizeke ta Mr. Speaker the same gatan da mo ta ta zo sezelea the onze dia zelea zo the khandi ze kesi kweze ke gala ta ni den Mr. Budget is a kigaita. The Oza Thitli as a goni. Da to the cabinet minister, the Kesi, the Lagalagan does go. The Handini de Nizia Kanduka, she Metanagonilla, Naituke on the housing unit. Here I had the Katian. Taji the Kigatan Dalini, Mr. Speaker, Massini. Camlick. Masi di tiseta che di motions che kana chesi sono gute tle cosa chu meke son quaita meke sona yaiti coneso masi tu sa te ante yete che se go gute te che ta masi si tu se ne ji ricorda del di masi di te che si recorded vote in there. Cazon in the hair nothing, yeah, nada shagun. 되게 되기다 디코제게 가시고 무신다게라 고지리 타게디 다 디제 계시 같은 다 record 10 3 posts some extension motion kind 다래도 마시니
Motions. Notices of motion for the first reading of bills. Notices of motion for the first reading of bills. First reading of bills. First reading of bills. Member for Nanakput.
Nanakput. Mr. Speaker, is the Honourable Matter Tobacco the Bill 23C Act Member Pagi be ready to Timiki at the Tiageti 2. Masini Nanakput. First reading of bills. Call motion. Motional. Keep more good than the other. Questions at the car. I draw in us, eh? I mean, that. I mean, get to it, I need that. Call motion death on Massey. Call first reading of job. Bill 23. Second reading of bills. Committee bills or other matter, Bill 3, Bill 12. The committee of a whole decade.
Brackets 2, member statement 77-19 brackets 2, table document 165, 166, 167, 286, 348 and 349-19 brackets 2. By the authority given to me as Speaker by motion 1-19 brackets 2, I hereby authorize the House to sit beyond the daily hours of adjournment to consider the business before the House as member for Inivicton Lakes in the chair.
Do you come member from Inivicton Lakes Zatlakandi, yeah, Masin.
All right, I will now call Committee of the Whole to order. What is
a whole case called the other tune de holiday. Masin. Document 286, main estimate 2021-22 decades. NWT Housing Corporation area. Masin car. Is the Kigazunda. Table document 296 2021-22 Northwest Territories Housing Corporation. The capital estimates the Kigazunda. Da Kakala the Kizigazunda the department. As you remember, this is the second dignity in the capital minister Zogende. The Housing Corporation the case here. Machine car. This is a 2021-22 the Housing Corporation the case here. You don't know what you need. And the 9.1 million the case. Is the case the 2021-22. The mandate is here. The Housing Corporation the case here. The government of Northwest Territories here. This case can be as you met lots of the case here. That the case got and Dani de 5 million the case here to the housing project the case got and as a body. the national funds program. 1.8 million is a cashew method land. 1.7 million the health programs. Because the Handi the Kizigat and Dani damage the Honda City with the housing pound as a liadu to no good in there. Is a issue with the staff to hit the law, care funding the Kirat and the Kotsa Shuti investment public housing secure method law, Kotsa 109,000 to method law, DJK whose funding issue can't down the DJK can't the two corporations that case here, the program. TC Akala, Megala, that the 19th Legislative Assembly that case here. The Aron the case in method law, the only theatres and the issue, the quantity. As any day Catile can de out at the Azon Magatana Tazake any day, Magatana Tazon. A sequon says a letter any Candinas or Tule make it Tule Segotelle. Is your ducal senate in the Madam Chair? Must Minister, see witness that India and the Mussy Sergeant Arms is to the witness the Gunis I end Mussy. Minister, I'm going to go to Kadindi. Mussy. Tom William, Jim Martin, President and Vice President. Mussy. Naki do the case you go cocked indignity that is a case the tape document the canalazo. That is a canny day, Magatunda, the case can't gatunda. That is a Kigatunda 372 Gigainda. Get you. Question. Tunade Woladay. Massy Madam Chair. Teacher Casey more Kadishin. Is it a Kigatan Tani Day? Teacher 25 million is a Kigatan. The utilities Koniti Konite Tiali is a key waters that the units a Kigan any then. The minister should cut the occasion. Magatan Tatu minister. Aji and the teacher Casey garni de got a downty more that in Dago Ayandi. Massy Madam Chair. Is environmental guide is to Jim Martin, ADT again on the Atuli, DJ Casey or Yandy. Massindi. Massy Madam Chair, DJ Casey, Hudson, the Housing Corporation, the Casey. She got on it any day, Metasi, Macazanata. Ita Messi Kakotita Hantika only with the Kaditi. Ijitako the Casio. Ita TC Kantikas in Lata Hani de Ka 25% loan DSR Kogont Aji the Kikalamagaita. The Kandisi Lati. $2-3 million Sasatella is in a Himagaita litigation. The Tandi Magata that the deferred project occasion. That is a Kigata and Tiny Day is using a total Mecanita Tizeke. The Magaita the Kenny Day. the orders are to lay, sets a reality here. 53 housing units here, Raditi. That can do 45 you can't set a lias go, madam. I see only on the 8plex right that too. Can't but the project is can't cut it there. It is a can of him out tiny, the down to make it what is it, I assume. The down to me that's a teacher here, that's and that's go. That is a case you color. Na ho ti si te ke ji ka kala ko ni gu ta z ko ti te ke kan di ko se ri te ji ta te la di on Arctic Energy Alliance ko tsai tin le imit the staff members vice president on you do na board head na ke seta na he ji seta ta ji gaita ko te chua si son lan di board ke ji me kan ni ta te ke de ko a si son ko te ti hali di to go to the case housing corporation the care. Da sitlo, and this is a target in the case. Around the case, Magaco Tani de car, a tandy, a galata, a tandy, says the Liani de la di on federal, as you go to go to guard that she was clear. That song is the care, Magai Tani Dene. The housing corporation the case the cutile Yagagan Dati Cosana the case. Can't you see the case? Can't you see the Dadi Galata the case Yaganda? That is the case la car. Kaji City Hamlet of a Slavic Kotata Diti. Is you got a biomass project the case the Trezekian. The public housing there. You see this on the Tano Tezekini de Ono Wago Tesila Housing Corporation is here. 37 solar system, 5 biomass again Lakotazeki, Kantiago de Endi Masi. Kosana si what they can't use the Gizekini, they so they chose a Hoba Masco Coteazon. Tizekisi is ya Megaita, the Zeketi, the service the Kekina hits a lejo. Tajitekela do Jordan de go, Tilandi Moda Tizeke. Di Miranda Dandi Mediterani de Jean des Andes Jordan dia Diadan. Minister Siji the Kyosi Sana Zekati. Masi Tite Casey got and Dani de is it a case or more Jim Yogo Yekundi Dijekeon. Masi. Madam Chair, the case got on 2021 to line down because the other Tiachandi the case. That is a case the right tiny day as a budget is right down there, the committee government the Yagane, Togo the Ragan Taji the Kian. That the contact the case got on the go. Turkey di clinic in Lala Jite dan Dayede, Dijite Kiade, Sata Kizade. Ita Tite Kinda Canete Sombagu di Kizigatu Magainta. Indeed, the Kizi Gatan Dani the power the Kigatan da car Hutlit on the 1.5 million Diaja indeed. The housing corporation is in issue. Ye kala go galaganta the Dizekedi energy efficiency zata geden ko tsa chua da the power the kesi wo tleseni tawni to a se thi tland member ji the ke da ye de kesi wa din di sian da ka si tlon le me se la de me tao de di si ze ke tle si tle zon de le a si yin di dan de ga go cha ka gon di gu ya i ze ke da me ze hon da ka kon ne zu de ga di ze da the greenhouse gas ta den di ka ze i ze ke kan di ni de tu le ze hon da ni de di wood pellet chu ta den da me ga da so da si di ze ke go ta zen di ze da kan dia mo da ti yan di se ni ti a ze ke di housing ze ke si o ka mo da ti dan di power ze ke da si ka ze din di se ni o ja a ge ti kan di o ka la a si di ze ke si mo da ti dan di se ni ti a ze ke si ga da yu ka men da di ke na ta o ze kan di o ka se ze le a ze go se na te ze ke ga ni de kan di jo da ka a si thon me ze si kan di kai de le ko wa chi shui me ni lang de me dao ze de ti ze ke ji da ji investment是的就嘛是个的价值观的嘛是de on ze hier ne inde ne ja ta ne ze ke ji tune de wo le de ma chi Madam Chair. Diese Käse so also letzte Käse ja der unsere Käse letzte Käse denn so liene sind die magata da die Julte die ja China de tu la kago tin li yan die da ye de kyan di du go
Improvements of Mr. Cazon. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have Mr. Jim Martin respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The increases in modernization and improvement, yes, will certainly.
ka dia cha chi la ka me za ta ze den diao ne kan di go is 1.2 million long dia dia cha ko zen da chi la the energy efficiency ke hao de du ga wa ta ko chu ga ka la me za ta di housing association ze ke si is ze ke tin da si che na ze i ze ke shu me sa la da yang de ni ma sin ni.
Thank you. Member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to page 373, heating fuel, I think with the cost of that, with MTS, that government owning MTS, that would be a lot better pricing, I guess, from MTS to the Housing Authority in the small.
Ko ta ko da che de ke ji ji de ke a ke ka ya chi le ko de o ze ne zu ga di ga chen da ni de tu le di ka di ji se ko che le yan ji chu je ke ji water and sanitation de ke ko che dia tu le de si ile in this last house ko che tak mer tak ji chu de o ze a zu le then the song kun is not get they go to two guineas then and yeah and now let's you light and five bedroom unit got like it two clock with yard.
Does that and they get water every 2 days? Why aren't they?
Pizza hanet two guarded. Is you also got a down the agil, situle kagile, is you want to in the machine. Merci, Madam Member. Merci, j'ai tout ce qui est à cette lettre qui croit de dire que si j'ai rien d'année, mais je sais que c'est un second. Merci.
Modernization and improvements. I brought up this week my local housing authorities in regards to windows and doors.
The windows and doors, you Congo Tenine to I see a hotel lende, he hotel in Bergen, go a casse. That is the case on the Chigotini Chini day, a quid I want to get tell it. It's a $100 you want to see.
With local companies instead of bringing outsiders in, and that's been a problem with that.
Local company, Gallagher died in is you want to say, Kadizaki company, contract occasion. Naki Cardes on a hotel, you can't do business in. Go out with us on the floor, you more window, the Chitazake. So, goodly long day, costly. That do you see Cargon dealer the insulation to hold that on? Don't deal is the case, you. I see chews is the case. I see the mold that the met eyes the care can't use that or Senegilia. Do I? Must
Thank you, Member Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did commit to the member that I will have the
Housing Corporation the case in. You may, but the community quack and Artule is the case. I see Senator Liteke, I could die to a jar conditions the case. I see, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Nunukput.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I have, I'll wait for that proper section. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions under Community Housing Services? Member for Decho.
Merci, Madam Chair.
Merci, Madam Chair. Iti konesi la kateti kama kyoricho. Dizacation. Northern Utility in the NCPC.
People having issues there, trying to get them to help the residents.
Kala jitake, that's a dizake, you lady, iti konetake. Cazon go gata dite, candigo kalai, and daddy galagenda.
I'm wondering if I don't know if you would know about it, but whether incorporating wood pellet boilers.
The Kandi wood pellet, the and line there, Simeta Jue iti konan there. It's a casing at. Is it a killer down the end?
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Energy efficiency, I said, it is a priority of when renovating and also administering our units. But this is, I can look at that, the wood pellet boiler system. But then
Daddy Guantaji wood pellet boiler system or Gundaji Zeke. Kilate Sheko, Mega County service school, Dene Zhatıé, Cazon Dene Zhatıé.
I would like to look at that and justify which regions this would probably work more adequately. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister.
Mendadi Guan, Dagar India, G, the one that Latule, the Kiziman, Zekaresia Dule. Egi Mendadi Guat in Dine, then is you are do Egi quantity Tira or the Sydney.
Appliances for hot water heating, the demand water heating system, which is
the two the core, iti quantity is the water, the other the tialing, that is it to propane as a little. In the Ajira, the other the cat in the wood pellet boiler towel. I see Candizi got an tied in this way. NSA, Jiwaris. You page 74 and you indeed 374 the KZ. Kotazi the apprentice as you let us see Kalakaguchale. Is you take casual. A town dealer, a sea corner, you go that the quota the case. Is you more 90 says you down the city. The assist the case Madame Chego Konze Ketausi Kanti Kutsane.
And gas safety aspects of it because you don't have anybody.
Do the Kayondi the Kesi that the unit is it and the gig Yandi sees at Song Kandi go Konze Kesi, do the Joji Jiko Tat in the Kota the Kesi, the Honda Hutli Guli Landi Kurat. And that's the one down in Israel.
To possibly ticket the couple of maintainers that been there.
The Kandi the Kesi la 15 years on the Kandi and she quite again the Koagut Oki ticket got the housing Tata la down due and the Kandi is the key. Quite should do business Kandi the key and the Demogala Tago on the ticket got and is you wine. Can't do it down the la goes again, you can't do it and go target in the end.
So I'm wondering if we could really have a look at that, and also probably the oil heat technician.
Is he Magatunda, the technician Joe? Now, what has the came in here? How did an Candici like this limits any desi, Metaculia go there? Quite is here the order. Tana Gowago than a Teatuleketi, the units clock only that. As you tell it, and art and I take it, you can't do it, you can't do it. That's all the public work and service they get right. 2 days you go to Northwest Territory. As well, she wasn't that. Electrician, plumber, carpenters, can't do it wrong. Gowago and a Teatule on the can't do it cool eyes, Kimmy Gurishol. The houses can see long. Method that you wanted to come good. It's a killer Kitana thing.
Actions in this regard, Masi.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Member, for your comment. And I hear you about the apprentices, but...
Nedesto. Is it a kid in this year? To the Cotlin Day, my apprentices were the 30K. And this is like the Kodeji Kotazeke. That the Kotazeke Kandi, Quake or Tizeke, Kotane, Kandi, the Ani, the apprentice, Ani, Kodeji, Jotuna, the Kandi, then I hit Seleti Hoda, Kandi go right and I told the case here. Is it on? Nizuma go Tilasa Kakondigo. Agent Chuna here Galandale, Kotazeke. That the order, the argue legeni, Kotazeke, and the secretary, she's riding the Kegosing on.
Through several casual employment people that they were wanting to invest in, and
not an account is argument. Tizeke, the Kodeji, Kandizeke, Tanagani, the Ani, the apprentice came, Massin.
Madam Chair, maybe I'll just make a comment about that. That maybe we waited too long. You know, there weren't too many OBM.
Sanadi in a home. The condition I thought is a key. That car, Sanadi, that is a case. The plumber go kind of only.
Other ways you can do that. There's other trades you can, like the plumber gas fitter trade, you can get that position, and that'll hopefully be enough to train and work with.
Aurora College, like
of information or people that have taken the course, or how many are even around the Northwest.
Tanet elatikandi ko te gaudi the course case. Tanet egidite in leni de kiti working the tagucha.
You've got to really work at this and help the people of the Northwest Territories in the communities, and we've got to start training our people.
Mikeka like Tata Tina Ho Chisico Goni Tiazoa, Night Row Ile. Do Tichekesio.
Thank you. Member Minister, did you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Member, for your comment. Absolutely. And I just, you
Housing Corporation the Kezi Chinage Neago only. Cazon and Daddy get down the apprenticeship take. Da get out the Mago tiny day, Casa Department, Yachigo Zende, Megatron Dog with the Macanu Tana, the apprenticeship take. Local housing authorities the key artists. Masini.
Thank you. Did you have any further questions, Mr. Bonner?
Merci, Madam Chair. I look forward to your findings and really encourage you to really consider this, because you stated yourself we have an aging workforce.
Tishim and Daddy coined out. Can you walk out in? None the nation I cheat get down. Taji take Kasiak. Can you see journeyman ticket you can either? And you go Niku College you want it.
Housing Corporation is the best playfield for this to happen. And I've stated the case of Public Works and Services. I don't know if... Of a comment or anything, I've got no more questions, Madam Chair. Masi.
Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess listening to the comment.
River South Kitty common out the singing. As you does a disease car, it's yati. Then I can do the agony.
It's tough to find people that are willing to go out and work. However, that doesn't mean that we stop doing that. We have to find innovative ways.
Can't do me to China going to own a car and daddy grant as a go. Can't do it and I can't do it too late. Can't do it too late and I can't do. Because I go galas and that's a key and then they say she started.
And I just want to give you an example of, you know, of what can be done. And
that's a last year when it's a caducine. That's it. See.
With the furnace. And of course, everybody was telling me it's this and that and thermostat. They always want to blame the thermostat. But anyways,
furnace ke galak zan da ji te kyo se se cooking de. That yes ne ju katule se se ya tule de sho ji ki me kyo de jon le des. Da kan dio tane te ki kan di si ji me te gun de. Da si tule di me ga ga da de si ka ka tan de. Is met a light guy down the car, so a corn. That's all the kids couldn't send a good energy. That is
so maybe that's something we can do, is to look at having somebody, you know, that's qualified.
Then I can't use it a good day. You could have short a case. Can't in a second year too long. Too late out second.
Or we'll start looking at is innovative ways. You know, I don't really care.
Then at the department, she and Daddy can dig up the coconut time, then is you. Does you and Dago any day to the county says it in the sun is you. Ye, the quays a kizimetas at the Kigatan Tazon in da a chago ginda, dark hagondi.
You know, they'll do some carpentry, they'll do a little bit of plumbing, and those type.
Mandadi galas and Datulish Chakanti has a la hair tiny there. To keep solid ya contact, I think she housing the kitten and candy goods and is a case situate housing with Zegundi, because a situate garden has a light bulb. Door locks talk on the I could do that heat lily. Little quetter kiss you, then a cantina that. As is the case in a see 무딘 딜란디 모다 tiu kandion de le jezeke. Da minister I do see.
Or any innovation that they've looked at to make things easier and
다시 세나트 레제케가 아니데 세면 다디게니다. 통어타는 간디고 다야군디. 간디 제케가란 다지 제케가레. 다 시제케. Thank
you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm very passionate about this portfolio. So what I've worked at is what I've partnered up with some of the communities throughout the territory is with our community initiative project program.
The program the KZ gainda. That is the KZ la kota the KZ ka kandi tene kandi si ticket ko tsare ko ya za si kandi kyo gere jo ka ya di. Ta ji ga ko ta ka de chu. Ta na ne tene si kandi ti le ko ta. Tambour River. Asia tene kandi plumber si heli. Kandi ki ticket me tsare kandi ka kos ko tse kandi si tene ko galanda. Kandi si ga zenda me ga ta agreement ko se sutle ko zeni te tu le tene kandi galanda. Ko ja oni klize ke su kli chonze ke ka go cha tene tle kandi si se gundi. Iji te ke kandi si da tene kandi si de program to le sa tu su kandi Cazon di te ke si kandi ticket ko tsale ko sandi le. Tu le ko seni ta ni ta tu le ko
Member?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, does the department or does the minister, or can she tell me, you know, and I'm not sure, I don't really see it in this section, but the cost of contractors to go in to the communities to provide services, especially in the small ones, and in the larger communities, you know, journeymen and tradespeople, they're accessible. But I suspect that the cost to travel into the communities and possibly the waiting time, those are things that I would like to know, and I don't expect her to ask.
Crack contract ke la county ada ze juli ko ko de ti son de ali yi ti kon ze ke ga de ko che ze ke me che da swa ze ti ya zong me se la li yi ze ke ta ki ta ki mo se ze ka ya chi ga de si le ko ne ne ze ka lu shi ko ti ta de zhong de te li kwe ko ze rig li ko zhen a ti jimmy ze ta ti kan di ga la da ni de ko ze ta de sa ze me ke ko ki ze li zhen kandi ze ke gan ta ma ze information an ta ni de ne zu ga de ko ta tu le ko zai ti ta di ke ge a ze ke ji o ji ze ke ko ta ze ke housing ge sa gen din de a de sin ma sin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the member for the comment because this is quite a significant problem and issue throughout the territory in finding you know, emergency repairs to be done immediately. You know, majority of the, not majority, but
emergency repairs is he to live in the duty. And you detonation countries chartered out countries, then it gets a lazy down or the secret has a kitchen is program. Target in the sun is a sunny. It's a schedule number sets at a call car. Tanti Mogun Tikat and Jinda, then a country trade goods, ticket to go tell. Then it's a Kikandigo, Kandigo Zao, the Kigani de car, the Kunkot has a Kikatulate and a Kandigo Liniko in the and the Masin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at maintenance here, where you know where it states that funding for LHOs to undertake demand and preventive maintenance activities to support the provision of good quality housing. You know, I'm just wondering how effective that is because we continually hear of units that you know are without.
Liga di kago di yogin di jiteke wadesi. Ishila tangdi Nakhi Meke Dandi, Dandi Sinina Ha, Tikandi Kade Zeni de Gozan Tigani Diayan.
Continually hear that we don't have good quality housing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would be our housing maintainers that would be first on the site, and depending on what qualified skill that we do have at the community level, we'll use the LHOs and LHAs first before looking for additional.
You want to go to the on the Kani Tani, didn't say, Mandadia, quite Diane.
Madam Chair, can the minister tell me how many community or which communities in the north have housing maintainers on site in the community?
The housing maintainers are done at the only to take out in the Kotazaki and the Masin.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hoping that we have housing maintainers in every single one of our LHOs. I'll hand this over to Mr. Tom Williams for his response.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, certainly it's in our best interest to have the appropriate trades personnel in our LHOs and local housing authorities. As the minister alluded to, sometimes recruitment is a challenge.
Minister, Tika, Hutia Sina Tukese Ojita Kesiga, Contigala Tata Kesia, Otiliza Kesi Conti, City Senator Inter Kesiga and Dani de Tisa Kesina, the contract, the process as he has. Ijana Hikandina Heko on to.
Has to provide training opportunities and exposure for trades. So that's a starting point, you know.
Contractor, she can't deal on Dani there. Cut then a quota with Zizia, can't go white in a 10. Can't do.
Partners in ECE. A lot of times I hear the biggest barrier is inability to pass the trade entrance exam. So that's something we have to look at. How do we make it more?
Tantia Tanesi County to the Kuwait and a Tiasi clear. Chiquaton County Catu Kuwait get in it. The county is a case here. The journeyman gate lays here. So county a gundi. County go Tanti la go ticlega, Tanti society, Tika, with the numbers at the cook, Dadi County, trades see la car county, Gundi son di not a housing organization J. Dala County get it, Dala go on a 10. Okay, you can call Shunli. You want it problems. Good to go that and go wide and that only. You aren't.
We are a good training ground. The Housing Corp could be an excellent training ground to get exposure and get people interested and excited to be a tradesperson.
Mr. Bonner thought the housing corporations that Kigalas and Dani there were going to attend the Kione. Miss you, Magaita, the contract that Kigaita, because the zoo society the Kiani there. Then they say, one or two apprenticeship getting to. Yes, I got and the Kakomona there on the Massy.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We're going to take a short break. Committee, we're going to continue on with community housing.
Do kala kandisi is a great sleeve. Madam Chair, here is the case. So the question that each must.
Housing units in my riding, I believe, and people that are dealing with housing issues and absentee landlord type situations are large REITs. And they tell me that, you know, they have issues in their units, there's water damage, there are issues with plumbing, things as that. And a lot of times the response
Solandi the quite case you can't dizzy. Metako hutliza good the can't do key or daily.
our department is what mechanisms are in place, and I apologize if I'm reiterating.
You la don't go on. The can't dizzy. Gala does a case, say now that little candy. Is it a queen? Hasn't this a case you are in the la uncle the apartments show on the other end. It is the case you got and down the end.
Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to have President Tom Williams respond because we have two different scenarios, whether it be in Yellowknife and we're looking at the apartments, or whether it would be in the smaller communities, and then we would look at the maintenance programming. Just so you could just elaborate on the two differences. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think I'm going to end in the President, Madam Chair. Is it on the to go on the any day?
Maintenance.
This is not the eat the any day. Okay, on the theatre case, queen of Jency Candy, do let's say, says a little hard to go on the Quiggery Chop apartment took any day landlord go on, can't okay, the care you can. And you go say ni tara candian, no need to the apartments.
We have the LHOs are all given a budget based on historical costs. They do unit condition ratings on an annual basis.
Harden Akina hits a gani day, Tanet Sombaji said Laji the Kegani day, Radas say Nagote in. As ago.
Age and condition of each of our units in our inventory. We know where we have to make major investments.
Is unit you can't say go contact Kizikandi Mora Tiazon, the Quincy Kandiga like Tiny Dayan. Tao de Tizeke Garayan.
Operational. So we have we do a number of working with our LHOs. This year has been kind of an off year with COVID, but we normally have a technical workshop.
Then as long as these workshops are seen, that goes I think they can do the COVID.
Training opportunities to these. Looking at learning from others. We're not the only housing game in town in the world, so we reach out and do our jurisdictional research. What are the best practices out there, and we.
Used to
have a northern building requirements process. We're tapped into that, and we participate fully in all events to make sure that we're up to speed on building our own capacity and capacity of our tradespeople. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Member for Great Slavey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that fulsome response. So I'm glad to hear that there's collaboration and jurisdictional scans, and I also encourage chatting lots with the Association of Consulting Engineers. I'll get a plug in for them. I think they'd be a good ally, and they can do lots of free workshops for your people as well. They often are in communities doing other work and may have an hour or two and could come in and chat with your people. So I do really suggest that as a good partner group. I just wanted to come back to, you had made a comment to my colleague about, sorry, the department had made a comment to my colleague about putting items in the contracts around training and requirements and such. Could the department explain if there are any
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have President Mr. Tom Williams respond. Thank you.
Thank you. President Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have it written into the
contract the training trade contract I think the program
10 individuals that are participating in that.
no long the target the trade
sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, no, is there any penalties?
Oh, okay. In regards to penalties, we haven't ran into that yet. I think we've been very fortunate. The contractors see the benefits of hiring a northern workforce as well.
Do you see the key on a contract?
Member for Great Slave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do appreciate that. I think it's really, you have such a great opportunity within this department to create learning opportunities. I think, again, I'm sort of probably reiterating what people have said, but I often, in my quest for women in STEM, have talked about you can't be what you can't see. I think famous quote from Sally Ride. So if you're not bringing in children or kids and youth into some of these builds, you always have to keep the kids out of the construction site as it is anyway. So why not bring them in at that point and show them what the different
Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I get an updated figure of how many units we rent off of private landlords? Thank you.
Units on the private sector.
I'll get Vice President Mr. Jim Martin to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Housing Corporation leases approximately 200 units. Thank you.
200 units on the
North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recognize that many of those units go to large southern landlords, especially here in Yellowknife, renting those 200 units. Has the Housing Corporation done an assessment of whether it's actually cheaper for us to own units as opposed to rent them off of the market?
The current unit not any day yet to get and
I'll have Mr. Jim Martin respond. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Housing Corporation has looked at this.
Housing Corporation, the got 27 he allowed do because he let it a coup the only the guy that here got on any dandy.
That the landlords, would have been factoring in profit components and reflecting the cost of their construction. So to construct, it was for the Housing Corp at that time, it was actually cheaper than leasing. There's a number of factors, though, that have to be considered in this, and as cost.
I see some method lot of the countries that can go and then I see you when I need the as go. The country that's a case, do and daddy quite that is teacher kitchen might. As Rokati, you say, one out to Kagondigo or Yan.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of my other concerns here is that we give about $20 million to our local housing authorities and housing organizations, and I've heard repeatedly from different ones that they would also like to be able to write grants and get money out of the federal government, especially in cases where they could probably get capital to build units and save money, as the Housing Corp just said. Why do we not let our housing authorities get money out of the federal government. Thank you.
Public government care downty somebody here the housing authorities yen.
I'll have President Williams respond. Thank you.
Thank you. President Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our local housing organizations or associations are an arm of the Housing Corporation, administrative.
Local housing any day housing association
I guess looking at why they can't access federal programming is
Tandia federal program the housing corp
in order to apply for, say, co-investment program, you have to own the asset. You have to have
co-investment program target the care any day the car in Tadi Gallagher as a go yen.
Minister, thank you, Mr. Williams. Member?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've mentioned this previously. I think there's probably it's caused tension in the past that some of the local housing organizations view themselves as a lot more arm's length than perhaps the Housing Corp views them, and I know there's a debate about whether they're an agent, but when you talk to a lot of the members on the boards, they want to be going and stop renting from Northview, and they want to be going and writing these applications and getting the funding. So is it possible for the minister to have a conversation? I think it's a different situation in Yellowknife where we are paying private.
Yellowknife la guliali landlord tago tiko any dela the Yellowknife Housing Authority that situle yego kotsayauzen the tizekesi wayandi.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we can have those conversations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would really like us to stop renting those 200 units and build some more public housing units that then we will have added to the stock permanent, and we're not at the whim of southern landlords. So I hope one day we can replace those 200 units. $8 million we pay in property taxes and land leases. How much of that does the Housing Corp pay to the GNWT?
Housing Corporation GWT that is $1 million occasion. Is your Vice President
Thank you, Madam Chair. That would be the vast majority of that amount would be going to the GNWT. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, one of my frustrations with government is how much time we spend paying ourselves. I bet you there's about 50 government positions that do nothing else than move money around. And I see every year we pay MACA and Lands $1.8 million. We require them to.
MACA,
What's to the GNWT? Has the Housing Corporation had a conversation, or is it possible for us to stop paying ourselves this $1.8 million?
Housing Corporation la
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Member for Yellowknife North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know the Minister, both as MACA and in her previous life, is well aware of a lot of the burdens of dealing with the assessments, and that it's not necessarily an easy task to pay ourselves. It can actually become quite complicated. Similarly, in this vein, in 2014, the Housing Corporation signed an agreement with the GNWT to
housing. Free simple land the KZ County the KZ to 2014 the Ku Kakin La Trison Bageti, the least the KSU. Taji the Cositulate the Kalagiti.
Corp's perspective is holding this work back. Why can't we obtain our units in fee simple? Thank you.
And I give fee simple that it at the units as the end.
What my colleague for Department of Lands had said is that consultation within the specific regions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I know the Housing Corp is in frequent conversations to transfer units to Indigenous governments, and I think there's some tension there because they don't want to take on those units without the maintenance funding that comes with them. But have we transferred any of our Housing Corp leases in fee simple to Indigenous governments, or
Sila taze chu yi te ke si ho. Ti fi simple te ke garis. Tandi si mori shoa lani de si ko di yalin de te ke. Ka di go di government ga te ani de chi ta go ta taze chu di te ke di government ze yendi.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have. I'm not.
Ka ka ti ta yendi.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Who? Okay. Member for Yellowknife North?
yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, and if we transfer it to an Indigenous government, do we do that in fee simple, or are we just transferring
Taze chu ni la fi simple da ta dang dia ge la yendi.
housing to Indigenous governments? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have to have the conversation with my colleague for Department of Lands for lands transactions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Member for Yellowknife North?
Ya so ti di lan se ke ga lan da ji sa ma ga de di si se ga de le.
The 2017 assessment, and we concluded that it's cheaper to build housing and own it than it is to rent off these southern landlords. I also think the GNWT has done this analysis, and it's much cheaper for almost all of these line items. It's cheaper for electrical power if we build according to new GNWT standards. It's cheaper for the $6 million we pay in heating fuel here. So it's not just purely the calculation of whether the rent is cheaper than the operations. It's cheaper in almost every analysis that we could possibly do. So I don't really want to see another analysis on this from the Housing Corp. This work has been done before. We know if we build according to good building.
Ti la ka ko zen ka sa li ti song ba ge de ti ze ke ti kwen ze ke zin ya yin. Si department la se me ga plan ko zen ti kan di ze ke zi ga zan da ti 200 units ze ke ga de zin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have Vice President Mr. Martin respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as mentioned, that the Housing Corp certainly recognizes that that it's important, one, to continue to invest in new buildings and new energy efficient buildings. And in doing so, that does enable the Housing Corporation to reduce our lease requirements for our existing housing stock. So that's certainly something that we continue to look at in those opportunities.
Na ki ka men da di ko ta kan di ze ke ta mo ka ya ne ti ka me program che gun li an. Da ko che tan er kan di sa na shu et ga tu le ni gu ta ji che kyu go ni gu ta zo go. Ta Housing Corporation si ya ka ne zu ko ga la gan ta di ze ke ji. A si go ni gu ta ze ke ji di som ba kan di federal funding che he ke te a di te i ya go ta ze go on de di ma si.
Thank you. Are there any further questions under Community Housing Services? Member for Frame Lake.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think this is the part where the community housing plans fall under. Is that correct? Thanks, Madam Chair.
The housing plans are killing wo good day.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I see that there's 33 communities. Of course, I think there's been one completed for Wati. Do we actually have a schedule for the rest of the communities at this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do. We have 20 engagements.
20 long
Thanks, Madam Chair. Can the Minister provide that to Standing Committee? Thanks, Madam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I see that in the Minister's opening remarks, she mentioned that there's going to be a person hired, I think, to help with this work. So I'm just wondering how that's going to speed this up. She mentioned that there's funding to support the hiring of a new term community housing planner to assist with delivery of the community housing plans. How is that position going to move this along? Because I think I've asked this about 5 years in a row now. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Mr. President Tom Williams
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we're in the process of recruiting a second community planner.
Because second community planners need to do 20 plans as I can do that is the case. That the member the third plan in the guy that got a sula seedlia. They are not going there.
We get a lot of interest as we travel out to the community.
Tazo gari daisy sontana yegini the plan see. That can do go again. Young life to go again. Town here, you can't do sontana. Candy or like in the Kotako Celeta, Eti Quaka, Ko Senita Nita Dina and Dezeke, you can't see right. Housing plans a kick one is
future infrastructure decisions. I think that's a take on its own. And you know, I can't, I have to highlight Wati because the reason why that was the first one chosen is because of the roads under construction.
What teacher going to do the Zhatıé, Cazon, you make it that kind of tears the Honda is your car, good task go omega plans the cases of Tanani Diane.
One module unit was brought through our community housing support program, was brought on the winter road last year, and the second module unit will be brought in when the new road opens. So communities are excited.
The Hitaka 20 days, we see what teacher and the other going to
living document that the community owns. It's not the old.
The government on the land, a committee, you get added the
Changing the model. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Member for Frame Lake.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I can detect some excitement on the part of the President, and I'm right there with you. I think the other thing, though, that these community housing plans are going to do is help refine our ask in Ottawa. We have to have that information, and we need that to compile it, to put it together so that we have a better case.
Ottawa, that get these cases, you are good task go. Is you chuaganda. That is you candy a security, and they cut DC. Got a good tears go on the other the huge Mizuko teeny tears go to the Kotlin day continues unity and daddy machine.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have President Tom Williams respond. Thank you.
Thank you, President Williams.
Madam Chair, the member raises a good point because it does, like I said, it does inform future infrastructure decisions.
Dago as a senior the Tanetati the Kizikati the federal government is Yamatiku the Kotiku the Jin Dage. Nezuka Moon is easy.
Help expedite the process. So our hopes to be realistic.
That's he can't do the Kenny comic song a lot. I can't do the Kenny the amateur plans the Kizzy. I need can't do car going to there. Could Targona yet as one, Dean only.
After to wrap it up, it takes some time and it.
Because at that moment, they give the other that the Kotar, the Tiago can do it here.
Please to get them all completed, and if we could get them done earlier, which is my hope, and I think the hopes of everybody is to get them done earlier.
He had in that machine, and the countries on the city to the Roman information is here.
To access more housing dollars. So it's very critical that we move forward, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we get this person recruited, and we have two people doing the plans instead of right now we just have one person administering them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member for Frame Lake?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better myself. We have to have that work done so we can make the case with Ottawa. Are we trying to get these plans done in the next year or two, or what's the end?
Plan la yun da ga ye me long ta dang di ga din yin.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very optimistic. I want to have these plans done by the end of the lifetime of this government. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Government ge si ji go me long di ga ti la chen lan ne ju di ma si.
Yeah, the sooner the better. I want to turn though to the Housing Corp as a result of a motion brought forward by the member for Yellowknife Centre in the last assembly, developed a report called Towards Level Ground. And this was a very good report that sort of laid the foundation for what it would cost to get our housing out of core need back in September of 2017. Are there any plans to update this work? Because that
Tita mo ko se si te ke la si tu le mega plan gu ni di ga la ta te ke a si tu ti ga ga go te ga ta ti go te ka la sa kon te le ji a do ha de sin di.
Thank you.
Thank you. President Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The member's correct. Updating the on level ground report on core need across NWT is critical.
Ko de ji tu ji core need se ti si te ke a do he ku te ani te tu ko de ji ta ka tu ko te chi ta ko ti te ke ji report a ke le
A lot of investments since that report was created, and I have to say that all our investments that we make in housing is reducing the.
Azona hit the investment is core needs a giant.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Williams, member for Frame Lake?
Madam Chair, yeah. So I just want to be really clear. Is there funding in the budget to get this done this year? And like the. This updated as soon as possible, because this is what you need to take to Ottawa again. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have President Tom Williams respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is money in our budget.
It's a budget.
Updating the on-level ground report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, member for Frame Lake.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I just can't stress enough the need to get this work done to make the case to Ottawa. I just don't know what else I can say. I'll beg, I'll scrape, I'll do anything to get you guys to get better prepared to take a case to Ottawa, to get more money for housing for us, and it needs to be a priority when you go to Ottawa. I don't know what else I can say. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Seeing that there are nobody else to talk on this section, there are no further questions. Move on to the executive, beginning on page 375 with information items on page 281. Questions?
375
Member for Nunakput.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, just in regards to homelessness initiatives and emergency shelters in the communities. Are we able to give us housing numbers, like the house number in regards to, and what's available in the communities? Like, are they furnished like they were supposed to be this past year in the communities? So, and are there 4 units available in my 4 communities? Thank you.
Thank you.
The homelessness, what is the end?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I have the member just clarify? Is the
member situation in the COVID member emergency shelters are in Lego the COVID that the COVID case ita the emergency shelter gets the Tuidane Clear Onze Shiki Quemetele is emergency shelter water Sieni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have President Tom Williams update the member. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, the member raises a point that we hear all the time. The homelessness has really reared its head under COVID. There's certainly a big demand, a big need in all our communities.
Don't tashi la the homelessness suitlio de. Hajo the COVID honda gushi. Taji te kia kuena te kia inji da no. Good. Ka emergency shelters and it you go kagu chale. That's with the surplus got the Quincy County garden dani de Kazoko Taze County Yago Lan is Yuane Monezoya the Kotaze Kezia. Kanduka Gondile Quincy Guy Tazago Tanti Ajonte Curati de Kezi Guy Tazago Tanti Tennessee to the Mikiti Gaita. Ajoman Dadigo Ago te Disomba de Kezi Guy Tiny de emergency shelters, yeah, Thitlia Contaze Kezi. Tini deti members as you car is you contact the Paula tucked in the is you car tule a con gote gute Gogalaita tule the homelessness the Casey or gute.
Older unit that's not in stock, that maybe it's something that we could repair in
Question out that Liligo any decatule gute homeless shelter guy then the machine.
A further update is the unit in Polituk. We have one unit there. It's currently.
Polituk to hit that says it do. It is you was any deca. The summer lonely demo wait out to lay and the deca unit nights.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Member for Nanakput.
Thank you. That's good to hear. So I guess we're going down that road where we ask unit. We have a shelter. You know, he makes a makeshift house out of plywood and staying at the end of town. It's not right, but I'm willing to work with the department and work with the minister to make this work for the community of Polituk, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions under executive? Seeing none, we will move on to Finance and Infrastructure Services beginning on page 378 with information items on 79. Questions? Member for Decho?
Yeah, I'm looking at page 378.
The 378 infrastructure
I note that you mentioned you've got a 54 apartment complex coming up in Yellowknife. That's going to be tied to a wood pellet boiler system.
Pellet boiler system
Pilot projects out of the capital city, out into small communities to try a biomass heating system and monitoring for
the biomass heating system is Kotagoda Chile, Kizigaku Tatu, Kishimize Honda pilot project on that the problem they caught the Kandia target, the Queen Lada, Imagina Kokunishagila.
set up a wood pellet boiler and tie, could be 5 to 10 houses. But I think in my community, 5 houses are look at trying it up in Tuktoyaktuk or Polituk. somewhere where it's out of the way to just try the systems out there and even ship the wood pellets up there. So
Palatak ke konze oju kandi wit palata sani Dene Zhatıé. Kandi jutule me Cazon town de yen.
just wondering what the minister's thoughts are on something like that. Merci.
Thank you. Minister?
Minister ji wala ne de yen. Jim Martin did ye wogun de yen masin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so as mentioned previously, the Housing Corporation has invested in a number of biomass systems in the past, and they've been very successful projects. We do want to continue with those type of investments for sure.
Yukago to kasitlane de shinle. Takatu leven dadi koita feasible study ati and you could go sanechu kandi koya ko taji kandi magaita yandi. Chitule atzelezeke. Taji zeke ati pellet boiler system gadi dini ko tazeke zio.
Thank you. No further questions? Okay. Any other questions under Finance and Infrastructure Services? Member for Great Slavey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm just looking at the line item again for infrastructure planning and maintenance services at almost 2.6 million on 379. I'm just curious to know if there's any efficiencies that the department sees could be made by perhaps sharing, and maybe it's not this particular area, but sharing some of the work with the Department of Infrastructure around their tendering of projects, etc. And whether or not we're somewhat duplicating that.
Department Infrastructure
You, Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have Mr. Vice President Jim Martin to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the Housing Corporation does have a very close working relationship with Department of Infrastructure, and we do certainly work closely with them. In terms of larger projects, the Housing Corporation...
ko aga laita dice keji ta tara saje se onse keji kandi ta dice keji kandi ji magaita so asi isi mesela di covid keda shagute ejita ka gondi si mete honan diago ti lan diali jite ta kakala kandi ji ko tegute ejite keji the Housing Corporation is you cover the good you can token the machine.
Martin, member for Great Slavey.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions under member for Frame Lake?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess I'm going to offer the minister a little bit of free advice. This district heating system that the Housing Corp is putting in, I think part of it's actually in my riding over on Woolgar. And like, why don't you guys offer a tour for the MLAs when it's finished? This is like a really good news story. Can the minister offer a tour for the MLAs and media to promote some of the good work that you guys are actually doing? Thanks, Madam Chair.
Member.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Always trying to make the ministers look good. I want to, look, I have wood pellet boiler in our house.
Wood pellet boilers, it's a large.
This is a couple issues for me. Our insurance company canceled our insurance over the holidays on us because
insurance to Candisi India
questions about our heating system, and then they canceled the policy on us. One of the issues is trying to get home insurance as a barrier, period. I've raised this on the floor before, but is the Housing Corporation doing anything on the issue of home insurance and how that, district heating systems or
It's insurance ki kaya tila down diage hiji wood boiler system biomass talo ki it's insurance na hila de oza mora shozon di.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll have President Mr. Tom Williams respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Madam Chair, home insurance is it can be cost prohibitive at times. We recognize that. But again, all you have to do is suffer one loss and you understand why you have insurance. And as a government, we're self-insured.
Home insurance you could li government insurance you could li ita khandiga tanda go.
Certainly, we have to look at it. We are working closely with the Department of Finance.
Department of Finance you go ga lai ta ti se ke ko ti a ni den. Ita ka gon ti a go. Da ko ne ni da ho gi ne ni. Khandigo is it ke ga tanda ni de $100,000 insurance da ki ka gon di. Da tie zong zhen ni de ni de go wa go zhen ne ten de ni zwa de insurance ke ji. Kan di ni de insurance company chu ga ti le go wa go zhen ne kan di ze ke ji ya. Di in le ge ti ani de son son ba go ne ni a de go tin de yan de ma sin.
Thank you. Member for Frame Lake?
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that's on somebody's radar. And while I'm at it, of course, I'm going to call out my insurance company, Aviva. Thank you very much for canceling our policy over the holidays. But I guess, look, wood pellets are good, but what's even more important, I think, in the more remote communities is wood chips, the ability to do wood chips.
Wood pellet ne zo wood chips with the owner zo. Is it a kaki? Then I see can't see. And they wood chips a get the without McPherson and Daddy Gallagher, the Fort McPherson.
Housing Corp doing in terms of looking at wood chips.
Housing Corp la si tu le wood chip gagenta is a kagaris in the masi.
Thank you. Minister?
Chair, I'll have President Tom Williams respond. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Madam Chair, certainly, looking at alternative energy, it's important for us. If we.
And Daddy was a Tata Kenny then Akina Makada. It is a case got and tiny then is your dule. It is a case more gunde take. Haji did out to the go cause his occasion and Daddy quite tatule on there.
We work with our communities. We have a program out there that is suited. It's a very flexible program. It's called the Community Housing Support Initiative Program. And if communities have a desire.
I could take a program goodly. Daddy, that ham qua clav hamlet qua biomac Johnny.
To use that service, the biomass product, to heat one of our sixplex in a clavic, and it's a. We're using an alternative heating source for that infrastructure, so we're always open to it. We always encourage communities. Yeah, you want to put some that our program. Because reducing energy consumption and costs is.
For Frame Lake?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, appreciate that. Is there any specific work that the Housing Corp's done or is interested in doing with regards to wood chips as opposed to wood pellets? Wood chips, I think that's the way we got to go here. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as I know, we're just working with the wood pellets and the wood.
Wood pellets like we get like the wood chips and then not the more good was it?
Thank you. Member?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess I want to encourage the Housing Corp to be a little more proactive on this front and not just sit back and wait for somebody to come to you, like if you've got a new
Do Nizuni ne wani dene zhawo te kotanari ilin dene zuwane sen. Kandi di zeki wood chip zeki zi. Mega handa mentadi kwa handa yan. Kandi ni de tule nda ten dene si ko te partner si kwa ne tia tule. Arctic Energy Alliance ko kandi kwa handa tule iji zeki da. Di si kandi kwa handa ni de nizua tule yan di ni masini.
Thanks. That's all I've got. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, member. Minister, did you have any last comments or no?
For your comments. Thank you.
Member for Yelm, oh, I think we're going to take a break here and then we'll resume and finish up this department and then have the last item. Thanks.